first ever South African and African business school to win the competition in its almost 40-year history. And we're really excited to be here with you today. As mentioned, VZ is our finance guru, and I invited him here so he can give you some more insights into finance. And he will be assessing you on that space, but also all of it, because he's also extremely analytical and can give you great feedback in terms of strategy as well. So with that, as mentioned already, the quick agenda is introductions, which we've already had. We're going to do the pitches. We're then going to follow into kind of going deep dive into the case. VZ, you can stay or not stay for it, totally up to you. Then we'll talk about, last time we talked about how to craft your presentation or case analysis all the way up to recommendations. So today we're just going to deep dive into the rest of it, which is implementation and financials. But I promise I won't take up too much of your time because most of the learning will happen as we unfold the cases. Okay, so today's case is GameStop. All of you have received it. This actually, just for some background, this was VZ in my semifinals case at semifinals or quarterfinals at the John Wilson International Case Competition. And it was an amazing case. And even especially because since then, the company in general has just had such an interesting context. For those of you who follow along in the stock market, they're one of those hot stocks that people were trading a lot and making a lot of money and then losing a lot of money, but interesting pivot as well there. So this case was written before all of that history and before COVID, but as mentioned in the brief, you're welcome to use the current context for your solution. In addition to that, just some housekeeping in terms of our presentations. All of you are here and I will call one team at a time to present, but I just want to say to the rest of you who aren't presenting, guys, be present. Like, this is a learning moment. So don't be also working on your presentation in the background or not being present. You cannot make any changes to your presentations, of course, on our system, but be present, jot down a lot of questions. At the end, we'll do a Q&A, but we'll limit the Q&A to probably the Exco team from the Consulting Club and VZ and myself, just in the interest of time. But later, as we dissect the case together, I would love for you to bring those questions into the room and we can all discuss those together. Okay, so sit back, watch like you're watching experts participate, and just honor your team members and honor your Consulting Club and be super present. Does that sound good to everybody? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to call our first team. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to call on team 4. If everybody is here from team 4, I'm going to call on you to present. And as soon as your presentation is up and you say ready, I'm going to hit the timer and you have 20 minutes to present, and we'll do a 10-minute feedback and Q&A after.
Cool. Give me a second to share.
I'm going to stop sharing. I just want to check, VZ, are you ready? Everybody ready? Fantastic.
Good to go. Morning, everyone. My name is Dirk. I represent Team 4. There's our team. We've got Tumi, Tsepi, Mazozi, myself, and Peter. It will be me and Tsepi presenting today. So let's get into it. So GameStop finds itself in a dire situation. They need to change quite quickly, or they might face going under. Looking at situational analysis, they are a large legacy business model, which is built on physical retail stores. The environment in which they operate is extremely competitive, and it's constantly changing. It's becoming more and more digital, which poses a lot of threat for them. But what they do have is a large active customer base in their favor. However, that's not saving them from losing massive market share, profits, and also the confidence of the board, as well as the shares, as their share price. So our owner's conundrum is, what strategy will prevent the collapse of the company and pivot it towards a sustainably profitable business that is future fit for the online gaming industry going forward? Our value promise pivots on a 5-year digital transformation strategy that will deliver an omni-channel structure, steering away from just retail store only, increase revenue and grow market share, and streamline operating costs, and become the market leader in a digital platform for gaming. So you'll see how we're going to do this. It simply is the digital transformation, going to the omnichannel, very strategic partnerships with the right gaming entities, creating an online marketplace, not just for games, but much more, and being much more intentional and meaningful with our customer engagement. This will give us access to a larger digital market. It will lower the operating costs, and it will grow the customer base, also going into new markets, creating additional revenue streams. After 5 years, the company will see a revenue growth, a compound annual growth rate of 47%, a cost saving of 45% coming. I will show you how we get there. That's quite large. And a market share growth of 7.5%, ultimately returning the company to profitability. The key issues, 3 buckets. The market share is in decline. As I mentioned, that's due to the industry landscape going digital. There's a lot of customers finding it more convenient to download games instead of buying them. That sees a drop in the foot traffic at retail stores, with the case study also predicting that a large percentage of stores, I think, will be closing in the next 5 years. A challenge for them is that the gaming companies want to drive the traffic to their own platforms, are physically preventing retail stores from selling digital downloads. So they're limited to their console sales and physical games. For GameStop, they deal in the second-hand market, but there's also been a decline in used game sales, driven also by the more digital preference of games. Then there's also some companies offering new subscription-based access to games, which also will have a decline in their sales from a market share perspective. The second bucket is poor customer engagement. The problem GameStop has, although they communicate and they've got a large active customer base, they're not really actively customizing and segmenting and engaging with their customers. There's a complete lack of data analytics with the data that they do have. They're not being targeted with their marketing. There's a generic push approach to all customers. And although they're on social media, they are focusing on the wrong segments. They're on the wrong platforms. And what I mean by wrong is Facebook and Twitter, etc., are not the platforms that the gamers are active in. And their website is a bit inferior, and the user experience is not great. There's also a bit of a disconnect with although the new board members have got great skill sets to drive this new digital transformation, they're all in their 50s and perhaps a bit out of touch with the younger market. Lastly is a very uncompetitive cost structure. The brick and mortar setup is very costly compared to digital. So they've got excessive capital asset ownerships, quite high inventory levels, and a high number of staff. So simply put, GameStop is no longer structured to be competitive in digital age. So our recommendations, I'll go to that in more detail later, but at a high level, to address the market share decline, is the digital transformation is needed to change the business to omnichannel, to be able to access that digital market. To address the poor customer engagement, we need to create an amazing, all-encompassing customer experience. And the uncompetitive cost structure is we're moving to a hybrid cost structure, which will mean we'll have to close quite a few stores, reduce the number of stock and people, which are quite high cost drivers. That will reposition GameStop to go to, the digital, to enter the digital platform for gaming. Quick look at a market analysis. These numbers all come out of the case study. What's interesting is the average age of the gamers is 31, so that's relatively young. It's a massive market for new games, but look at the last one, gaming content. That's even bigger than the game market, and that's important for us because I'll talk to what else we can sell instead of just physical games. The year-on-year growth is massive at 9.6%, but the console market is still also a big market, and consoles are sold predominantly through retail, whether it's online or physical stores. So you can't close all the stores. There's still a high component of sales going to come through from the console segment. all in all, this market is growing, but the trend is going towards digital. Like I said earlier, 25% of physical stores is going to close in 5 years. And anyway, so just from a competitor analysis perspective, we've got the green is the digital players. Amazon sells both games and consoles. At the bottom here, we've got the brick and mortar. So GameStop plays in the brick and mortar, and they compete. The other retail chains that play there is like Walmart and Target, but they're not completely. They've got different revenue streams, not just games, so they don't have to worry. Here's our recommendations from the digital transformation. Is we're saying, okay, listen, how are we going to do this? First of all, we have to develop or partner with online gaming platforms and better e-commerce platforms. We have to create our own second-hand market that we already have in stores, but create an online one. And here's what we're going to add. We're going to add a marketplace where you can sell NFTs and digital merchandise. There's a new market growing for avatars and a number of digital gaming assets that players can sell and resell. Like I said earlier, that market is almost 50 billion a year. So we're creating a marketplace to sell that along with games and consoles. We have to negotiate the rights to sell digital games with the providers. We want to offer free trials to draw in people and saying, listen, free access to the games for a bit, and also add a subscription service. Add a digital currency and rebrand GameStop as a digital platform, expanding also into new markets with the going in like Asia, and also new markets with respect to game streaming that they're currently not in. Meaningful customer engagement, invest in data analytics, get it right, customize your customer engagement, revamp social media to go more towards the streaming and gaming live platforms. Do a proper UX redesign and customer journey of the platform to engage and keep customers involved. Here's a big one for us. We want to, although we're going to close a lot of stores, we want to launch flagship experience stores that'll host events and pull foot traffic into the stores and drive community engagement at store level and online. We need to revamp the loyalty program and look at the age dynamic in management so we are more relatable to a younger customer base. We want to close two-thirds of the stores, 1/3 in year 1 and 1/3 in year 2 to free up working capital. So in essence, from an implementation perspective, we're looking at 3 horizons. One is defend the core business, stop the bleeding. So we free up cash by closing stores, and we start the development with that money we freed up of the digital platform. Secondly, we're going and saying, okay, we're creating what is our future going to be? That's from year 2 to 5, is creating a digital community, building the flagship store experiences, and creating strategic partnerships and new revenue streams. And from year 5 onwards, that's just growing. That's growing digital community, growing the strategic partnerships, and growing revenue streams. The implementation is set out there for you. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into much detail, but most of the work will happen in the first 2 years, in essence, and then from year 3, we're stabilizing and we're growing. Tshepi is quickly going to speak to the finance for us.
Thanks, Dirk. So with this new strategy, we forecast a 47% compound annual growth rate increase in revenue over the next 5 years. And this basically takes into account GameStop's current product lines, but also adds e-sporting gaming tournaments, which are centered around the community building that Dirk mentioned in the recommendations, as well as brand positioning, brand visibility, but revenue generation as well. And then we've also added in streaming services from 2020 going forward. And these are the 2 gaming market segments that we recommend GameStop introduce. Essentially, the forecast also takes into account the 3.5% increase in retail sales. It takes into account the new market entry that I spoke to earlier, but it also takes into account the 14% conversion rate from membership, or 14% paid membership conversion rate that GameStop currently has. And would basically be moving, once implementation has started, GameStop would be moving from an 8 million revenue, 8 billion revenue stream to a 9.5 billion revenue stream in 2020. And at the moment, the forecast on digital revenues was on the low side. So we didn't over forecast the increase in digital revenues, despite us recommending a digital strategy, because this is still a relatively new, it's still a relatively new area for GameStop. And they do not necessarily have the expertise to implement, or rather to move into the NFT space. So we were being a little cautious, or rather a little prudent on the digital revenue forecast. And because GameStop is not a cash poor entity, when you use the cash reserves or the cash surplus that GameStop has at the moment to partially fund this transformation strategy, and couple that with the forecast revenue performance that we see here, GameStop could once again become more profitable and increase market sentiment, and hopefully reduce some of the asset impairment that has negatively affected their 2018 profit margins. Thank you, Dirk.
Debbie. Looking at our risk contingencies, so with big change come big risk, especially in platform and platform development and switch over to from legacy systems. So from a platform development perspective, we're saying be very selective in the developers that are selected. They should have an excellent track record and be reputable companies. We can expect backlash from closing 2/3 of the stores. That's why it's prudent to contract the labor specialist and definitely involve the unions early on to make the process as seamless as possible. Because we're going to have such a large focus on using customer data privacy issues might become a concern. We want to be sure that we dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and implement world-class leading cybersecurity, and we never ever have a breach of client data being leaked out. And then obviously there's transition challenges. As you make major changes to anything, it's prudent to take a phased approach, starting with a pilot, testing it, and then rolling out sequentially as per the implementation plan. You'll see now it's not one big change at once. It's phased. To conclude, so we've put forward a 5-year digital transformation strategy to really grow the market share, to grow revenue, to cut down quite a bit on operating costs. That'll help fund this growth and the development that we're doing. And essentially, the goal is to become the market leader in the digital platform for gaming. And this strategy will deliver a 47% compound annual growth rates in revenue, the 7.6% in market share, and the cost saving of 45%. Thank you. I think we're well in time. Questions?
Dirk, you do have about 4.5 minutes still left.
Okay, let's quickly go to this slide. Maybe I can talk you through a bit of implementation. I was just afraid of time.
No
so let's
do you want to back up one more, sorry, and then go a bit more in detail on your implementation, then walk us through the implementation.
Sure. Okay. So like I said, we look at use the McKinsey 3 Horizons model. So the first one is definitely defend the core. So we're saying, listen, we're still making money in the stores, but we're also losing money. So we need to find a balance. So we initially you stop the bleeding by closing the stores that make sense to close first. So that's ones that are at the end of the lease term that are not doing well, and that cost them most. And if you look at the profit per square foot, there's a lot of them that don't stack up compared to the rest. So we stop the bleeding there. We take that money, and we've got a bit of money from the cash reserves within the company, and we immediately start with the digital development of the digital platforms to start that digital transformation process. That's most of the work in year one, or we'll stretch to year 3. Overlapping, we've got the second one, and saying, listen, how do we foster new emerging businesses? So the digital community is imperative. So that is getting people onto the platform, getting people into the stores. That's why we have the flagship stores. These stores will host events like live game streaming, demo nights, hackathons, even bringing in some cool old arcade game evenings. Those are the type of events we want to create excitement in these flagship stores and get the community involved. And then create strategic partners with the gaming manufacturers. Although they don't want to give us access to sell the digital downloads on our platform as yet, we can go to them and argue. We can give you customer data, not product customer data, but more trends and insights, and use that as a bargaining chip to say, okay, listen, give us the ability to sell on our platform as well, and we can provide you very good customer data insights. What are people playing? What is preference? What's coming out of the blogs, the community? What are the trends? And that's what we want to do. We also want to enter new markets. If you have a look at it's quite a Western market. We want to enter the more Asian markets as well. I think there's a big opportunity there. And lastly, the final phase is just growth. So once we've done the transformation after 5 years, it's just keeping and building on what you've created on the digital community, the strategic partnerships, and the revenue streams. And don't forget about our revenue streams with regards to NFTs and merchandise and digital gaming content. I think that's going to be a great game changer for us from additional revenue stream. People buy credits to buy clothes for their avatars, buy credits to buy and trade weaponry, those type of things. And it's again, if you have a look at where's this market here, not the console, the gaming content market. It's quite a big market we want to tap into as well. I think. Yeah, I'm happy. I think I've taken you through a sufficient level of detail, and any other detail you're welcome to clarify in the question segments. On my side, I've got about 40 seconds left.
Great, thank you so much, Dirk. I'm actually gonna hand over to VZ, maybe to kick us off, if that's okay, VZ. And VZ, also just to contextualize, this is about your 3rd case that you are all doing together, right? Or 4th?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, VZ.
Okay. Thank you, Dirk. Thanks, Shivani. If you guys do hear toddlers scream in the background, I've got 2 kids in the back, so just ignore that. Thank you, Dirk. I think it's a very good presentation and a good summary of the current situation. I think one of the big issues, obviously, is that the developers won't let us sell the digital games. You do mention renegotiating with them and perhaps using some of the data of our customers and providing them with some trends. But could you give me a bit more color on that? Which developers are you going to target first? How do you think? I mean, there's a big risk for us if we go to them, we're going to provide you with trends and data. We don't have it yet. We still have to collect that. It's a big risk. Everyone just says no. How can we think about targeting specific developers first? What can we offer them now to get them on our side? Because we have stepped on their toes in the past with our second-hand game sales.
Yeah. No, I hear you, Francel. That's a good point. So, firstly, we do have data. We just haven't crunched it yet. So there's quite a large active customer base already, like I mentioned earlier. And you've got the online and magazine and the publish magazine, everything. There's a lot of data there. And if you go to our implementation plan, we also said in year 1, leverage data, so invest immediately in data analytic capabilities. So we'll start there and we'll get people in to see with the available data that we have, what's the insights that we can gather. From that, we're going to go to targeted marketing and customer segmentation already. Once we've done that quick first glance analysis, then we can go and start with the negotiating table and saying, guys, this is what we have. And what we have is what they don't have in terms of, they probably only have customer data from their sales, from their specific brand. We've got from all brands, from all consoles and games. So it's a perspective that they don't have, even at the early level. For us, we're going to grow the customer engagement. We see the value in it. That's why we want to grow it. And in terms of who we will approach first, we'll go with the big hitters first. I mean, analyzing, saying where is the most of the revenue coming from, which game. So if you have a look at the competitors here, that'll probably be these three guys. Probably be PlayStation and Xbox first, and Steam is more towards online streaming, etc. But we'll engage with these players first.
Thank you, Dirk. Then onto the pre-owned part of our business. And we sell most of the new games at very low margins. It is a commodity product to a large extent. And then we make all of our money really on the pre-owned side of the business. You forecast quite a bit of growth in that. I think 50% growth over the next 5 years. Can you talk me through the assumptions that you made in that growth, and especially considering this move to digital?
Sure. I just want to ask, Tsepi, do you want to come in? Otherwise, I'll take it.
No, I'll take it there. So with the pre-owned games at the moment, well, at least in 2018, those were about less than 20% of, or around 20% of the total revenue. So they are a big proportion of revenue, but fortunately they're not, the revenue composition is a little diversified in that we still have a big chunk of revenues coming from the new video hardware and software sales as well. But the assumptions that the assumptions that I factored into the pre-owned gaming section is essentially sorry, my laptop is doing
so I'm not so concerned about the kind of the financial assumptions. I'm more, so if I look at the revenue, there's not a big part of our revenues, but of our profits, it's a massive part because our margins are much better on that. So, I mean, in the new consoles, we compete against Amazon. We got to sell those consoles almost at no profit, but we make really good margins on these pre-owned games. From a practical point of view, so I'm not concerned about the 50% growth. From a strategy point of view, how are we looking to get that growth?
Right, so if I can come in here and say, first of all, the market's growing already, but like I mentioned at the beginning, we're still making a lot on consoles and our physical stores. You're right in saying margins high on the secondhand stores, our secondhand units. So that is why we'll recreate what we're doing with the secondhand sales online as well. So people will be able to buy and sell online the consoles, the games, and also memorabilia. So we're driving that, making it more convenient for people that don't have to go into stores to take their unit. It's more like an online sales. You partner with logistics companies, and the one thing that's driving the move to digital is convenience. So if we bring the convenience of the secondhand market into the platform and saying now you can list, you can your product you want to sell, we'll collect it, and you can sell it on. That brings the convenience factor, and that will grow the secondhand market side of things.
Okay, I think that's a good answer, and I think it's a very important, from my analysis, I think it's a very important part to get right, just because it's such a big driver of profitability. And maybe, Shivani, can I ask one last question? I've got I can ask a whole lot, but I'll give you a turn. Just the last one on the NFTs, and I can see the kind of the attractiveness of that market. Obviously, is quite a fast-growing market. It's a new market, and there are few entrenched players in there. We don't really have a lot of skill in that market or experience, and you mentioned the board and some of our management. Can you give me a little bit more color on exactly how we're going to get that right? Because we've got quite a few things that we're going to do. We don't have a ton of money. How much are we going to spend on this NFT project? How are we going to make sure that we win in this space?
So if you go to this section here, it says develop in-house or partner with online platforms existing. So what I try to do is saying, listen, this is high level, but once you start looking at the market and what's available and start doing costing, we will develop what we can in-house as far as possible, as far as costs as allows, and then we'll partner with specialists that doesn't make sense to develop in-house. So if you're saying, listen, it might be a bit tricky with NFT, we will definitely then partner with existing players to give them access to create a customer base going through us, and at the same time, whatever traffic or sales goes to their platform, we'll take a cut. So there'll still be a revenue going to our side from anything that we partner with, but we don't build in-house. Does that make sense?
Thanks, Doug. Makes sense. Shivani, I'll pause there, and you can manage my time.
Thank you. Well done, guys. Great presentation. I actually have a few questions on the finance slide as well. Just because I think that's where it all culminates. It's not necessarily anything specifically targeted finance, but first of all, on here, I saw you guys have a line item that says eSport gaming tournaments, and this is the first I'm hearing about it in this whole presentation. Was this part of your strategy or implementation plan?
Yeah, sorry, maybe I didn't mention it quite quickly, but so here we go, live streaming. So again, like we said, twofold: to build it into the platform so people can play tournaments on the platform, but also to have it in our flagship experience stores, to have events there where when there's big events happening, live streaming events, we can host them there. So it's hosting online where people have our own esports competing on our platform, or if something happens on a different platform, we can have events pulling footfall into the experience stores and have a great vibe there watching the live streaming.
Okay, thank you so much. Could you go back to the finance slide?
Sure.
Just sorry, a yes or no question for the new video hardware, new game software, and pre-owned and value video. So the first three line items, are you guys assuming this growth is coming through from your digital marketplace? Because sorry, yeah.
So in essence, yes, but also we looked at what the industry is growing at. Okay, and we were conservative to add a small percentage on what additional share. I think it was like 4% of the additional market share that we can grab on those three elements specifically.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is because I think this is an unrealistic projection to me, because if you look at the data that was provided in the case, you'll see that these markets were actually shrinking for us, especially for GameStop. So especially the pre-owned segment was getting smaller. And that kind of makes sense, right? If most people are heading to digital gaming, pre-owned might become a novelty. So I just think that these three growth projection numbers are unrealistic, and adding on to that and gaining more market share.
Yeah, so you'll see it's not the first two items over a 5-year period don't grow that much, and then I've already explained the pre-owned part, bringing in the added convenience where they can now sell online as well. That's how we see the growth in a diminishing market. But the video hardware is growing, and the new game software is growing. So we can sell it in store, and we're now going online. So it would make sense that if the market is growing and we saying, okay, listen, to Tepi's point, we're going to be on the low side and saying, okay, we're going to take a 4% additional market share, not massive, because we're online as well now. So that should drive video software and hardware sales additionally.
Okay. I'm still not convinced because you're also closing down a number of stores. So it just still sounds really aggressive in my opinion, but that's okay. Can you also just speak to maybe what were some of your decision criteria when coming up with your recommendations? Like what was important to GameStop?
So I think the decision criteria will then look at this and saying, listen, what is almost the low-hanging fruit that we can implement quite quickly? So what can we start with? We can say we can then immediately start in the development of the digital platforms and the digital transformation strategy. But to do that, we have to free up quite a bit of cash and stop the bleeding. That's why we go quite aggressive with closing down stores first. So we looked at what is practically possible, what's the complexity involved. The more complex elements we only start doing in the second horizon, and the biggest impact on the business. We want to have the items that's going to have move the needle the quickest. That's the decisions we base. So it's merging this horizon 1, 2, 3. What can we do now? What makes sense to do in 2, 3 years, and what is later, and we try to steer away from anything that is from a Pareto perspective is going to create a lot of effort, but not so much move the needle.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I saw that Tepi had a hand up earlier. Tepi, was there anything you wanted to add?
It was to Shivani's question on the sale of those first 3 items, the hardware, the software, and the pre-owned video games. I just wanted to mention the fact that with the console sales are forecast to grow at about 20% rate year on year. So if console sales are increasing, then there'll be an increase in the need for hardware. There'll be an increase in software purchases as well, in alignment with the increase in console sales.
Yeah, thank you. I also just want to clarify and saying, remember, our online platform will sell consoles as well. It's not now again going to the convenience factor for the customer. So even though we're closing stores, it's not like we're losing out on the second-hand portion or the console sales of the stores. We're losing completely because we're replicating it on the digital side and make it more convenient for the customers.
Great, thank you.
Right.
Did the rest of the team have any questions? VZ, Exco?
Tepi, maybe just back to the financials, and I understand it's probably the first time you guys do the financials. So I'm not going to pick on you, but I'm curious to know, we obviously going to get all of this growth. It's going to require investment in several different projects. How much do you think these projects are going to cost? And what do you think our return will be on that investment?
It's difficult to say because there's no real data to work with in the case. So everything, any number you put out there will be a guesstimate. I think what we're trying to do is saying, if we can save a substantial amount of money, and we've got free cash reserves already there that the company does have, like I said earlier, saying you would make a decision saying what makes sense to develop in-house versus what makes sense to partner out. Mm-hmm. So you have to work with what you have, and we try to free up as much cash as possible to fund this new avenue of the digital transformation.
And Shivani, can I make a general point? Just not questions, just kind of advice. Yeah. So obviously you always have to give a budget first. So I'd start with a budget, and it's difficult. You say you got to work with what you've got, but you have a couple of things here. You've got your revenue that's going to grow to 12 billion. You've got somewhere you should have some impact on the margins. So I can infer so how I would look at this, say, I'm not whether this revenue forecast is right or wrong. Let's work with it. I'm going to make 4 billion more. I'm going to have a margin of, let's say current margins are near flat, but let's say I can get back to my 7% margin. So I know what I'm going to make an additional profit. I know what a reasonable ROE should be for a business like this. Let's work with 15%. So I can reverse calculate what that capital, I mean, whether that's fair or not, gives you another sanity check on your strategy, because you're going to say, okay, this whole thing is going to cost me, I'm going to make 4 billion more in revenues. Let's say it's 400 mil in profits on a 10% margin. Let's say I'm going to have to spend 3 billion to earn that. Where am I going to spend it? Is that reasonable? If I'm going to spend 3 billion, I don't have 3 billion. I think I've got 1.5. Where am I going to get it? When am I going to spend it? And a big part of making this realistic as well. Let's say the NFT thing is kind of a long shot, but you can always be kind of slow in your implementation, or you can explain that it's a moonshot strategy. Any parts of this really doesn't matter, but you can explain to me, okay, I'm first going to spend 20 bond the first year doing this and that and that. I'm going to get try hit these KPIs. If I don't, then I'm going to do this. If it does exceed, I think I can achieve these projections. So you can build a lot of risk mitigation already in the way that you communicate it. But all these presentations, and you'll see them with Shivani's questions as well. Usually when the Q&A starts, you often go to the implementation and the finance, because that's the practical stuff that you can really put a lot of detail in there to make it really practical. And that's kind of the thing that's going to get you over the line in the end.
Thank you. That's quite valuable feedback. So thanks for that, because up until this, but this is the first case I think we're doing with financials. So it's very good. Yeah, thank you.
But thank you for
that. You guys did very well. So it's all. You don't want to make it. Don't want to pick on you with the questions.
But thank you for the feedback, though, because I struggled quite a bit when I was thinking about how to put together a budget that includes the costs, because the costs weren't broken down in a way I could do much with necessarily. So I wasn't sure how to factor in assumptions that are not coming from the case necessarily. So it was a little easier working on the revenue numbers because they have almost everything that you need in there, including market size, percentages, and all of that.
It's
so
very
thank you
difficult
for that.
In some cases, you have almost no financials. We had in the semi-final, we had an insurance case, an insurance conglomerate with no financials. But you have to build up a full set of financials. Otherwise, you don't. Otherwise, you're going to lose in a competition, at least. So that becomes very difficult. But another thing that you can include, and that we almost always included, was a assumptions page, kind of slide before I go into my metrics. And you can really build out a lot of detail, and as long as your assumptions are reasonable and not completely, off, that gives the judges color into how you thought about it. The more you can give them color and how you thought about that, the more you really flesh out this thing. So in terms of the assumptions, the closer you can get to your actual drivers and unit economics, the better. So if it was very simple, I mean, if we only focus on game sales, I'd go reverse engineer this thing and say, how many games am I selling now? And how many do I want to sell? In terms of, I'm selling, you can, when you say, okay, I've got, I don't know what the software is, 2.4 billion in revenue. I assume a game costs $20, whatever it is. I'm selling X amount of games. So the closer you can get it to those unit economics, the better you can flesh out your story. And then once you've built out those assumptions, then you go into the financials and show them what that looks like. And perhaps a last comment on the cost budget and in this presentation specifically. You're obviously doing quite a few things that makes it very difficult. If you have the NFTs and the online and all of these things, it becomes very difficult to know where to focus. So in the cost budget, you usually start with one amount. The total amount is going to cost this. I'm going to allocate X to this project, Y to this project, Z to this project. I'm going to spend it over these 3 years. I'm going to spend more on this project in the beginning, more on that one later on. And in those projects, you want to again delve into more detail. So, for example, in your online, your sports gaming project, you want to figure out what's the biggest thing that I'm going to spend money on that project. You don't have to mention every little thing. I'm going to employ 5 people and this and that and that, but maybe marketing is very important there, or the development of the platform or whatever. And you speak a little bit more about that specific thing to kind of show the judges that that you thought about the most important drivers of each part of this.
Perfect, thanks.
VZ, thank you so much. And to everybody on the call, I just want to say, I think the most valuable learnings you'll get out of this are going to be from VZ and his finance perspective. So it's okay if we're just running a little bit behind, because he has really invaluable insights around building out your finances. But just to I want to cap what VZ was saying. If you think about where we were in the last presentation, and I asked you all to focus on one thing, right? And that was, you need to think about this from the owner's perspective. You're pitching a solution to an owner, right? When you pitch a whole 5-year strategy, what do you think is the first thing they're going to ask you? They're going to ask you, how much does this cost? Always, if you're the owner, that's what you want to know. You're like, how much is this damn thing going to cost me? Okay, so regardless of whether you have information or not, you can thumb suck some sort of cost, but you just need to show it, and you need to be able to defend it, like VZ said, with assumptions, with some charts, with just some basic economics. Yeah, does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Brilliant, thank you. Seppi and Dirk and your team, I just want to say you guys did a great job, and for everybody else as well, because you both have gone first, if it's okay, I'm just going to be a little bit more detailed with my feedback, because it's going to apply to everybody as we're going forward. Is that okay? This is
sure.
not, I just take it as the gift that it is, and I know the next time it's going to be really banging. So the first thing I'm going to start with is time, guys. Like, if it's okay, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly, Dirk, and then you can go back to sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Because I just want to remind you all of the time breakdown we talked about last time. Ugh. Oh, man. Sorry. Okay. So if you can all see my screen, you'll all remember that I kind of gave you an outline on how you should be planning your time. And the reason this exists is because honestly, it really, really helps. And you'll see that most of your time should be spent on 2 places, your analysis and your implementation, right? And I would say that this is probably where you guys spent the least time. But if you spend lots of time upfront on these 2 areas, you'll prevent what happened to you now, which is all the questions. You had the answers, but you're not convincing me anymore once we've gone to Q&A. Like, I've already made up my mind. You need to convince me before we get to Q&A. And that's why take the time you've been given in those spaces to really craft it out and build it out well. Yeah. I also want to say in the beginning, Dirk, I think you did a great job with the intro, but the intro is all the slides leading up to analysis. And I think you took almost 6 minutes doing that. And you have 3, okay? That's where you can go bang, bang, bang and just explain it, but you wanna go into the details in analysis, in recommendation, in implementation. In the beginning, you're just taking me on a journey, you're just setting the scene. Yeah. Okay, can you, I'm done here. You can share your slide deck now. And everybody, this feedback is going to apply to all of you. So take these pointers as we go through.
Do you want to go to a specific slide?
Yeah, could you go to the beginning?
Okay.
The next one, the next one, the next one, next one. Oh, this one. Sorry, go back to the value promise. I feel like for me, you guys didn't defend how you're like the 7.5% market share. Like, where did that come from? How are you going to get there? Because it's such a precise number, but there's no backing to it. So that would have been really great to see. The 45% cost saving also for me wasn't really defended. I know you said you'll close some stores, you'll cut some jobs, but you didn't, like as a team, you guys didn't show any math to almost prove that. Yeah. Then
I think a lot of the calculations we did in the background, we didn't put it on the slide. So the 45% is actually calculated as the closing 1/3 in year 1 or 1/3 in year 2 based on the cost of sales.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Put that shit on there. Put it on there. You have to. Okay. If it's not on the slides, I'm probably not going to remember it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You can go to the KI slide, the key indicators or key issues, sorry. I want 2 or 3 bullet points per key issue. And the reason I'm saying this is because even as you were talking through it, you were already going into analysis. You were explaining things which you didn't need to at this point, and it took a lot of your time. And it's also really distracting to the judge because they're not listening to you anymore. Now they're just trying to read all of these bullet points. So keep it very clean, 2 to 3 bullet points per key issue.
Just in the detail here, just a kind of a general comment on the presentation. Obviously, you're presenting to the CEO. Just be careful about calling the board members old and out of touch. It might be true, but obviously, it's kind of from a he's going to have to go back with this strategy to his board for them to approve it. So remember who you're presenting to, and obviously you gotta just keep that in mind.
Thanks, Easy. That's a great shout. I also want to say on these key issues and recommendation, the next one, love the pullouts that you guys have at the bottom. That's great. Keep that. That really like summarizes the whole slide for me really powerfully. And in line with that, then I'm going to go to analysis where you guys didn't do callouts. So if you can go to your analysis slides. Okay, so stop here. Before you walk me through this whole page, I want to know what this analysis is about. I don't know. It's just like a slide full of numbers you see. Like, what is the point you're trying to drive home? Is, I don't know, new games market growing? Is gaming content declining? Whatever it may be, have a call out here. And that's why I think this slide doesn't really work well, because it was just kind of it was just a bunch of numbers, but with you're not leading me in a direction.
Yeah.
By the time I'm done with your analysis slides, I should be able to naturally agree with your recommendations.
Perfect.
The competitor analysis, if you get the next slide, was great, but what's the call out? What are you trying to tell me here?
Gotcha.
If you had a call out, what would it be?
The call out for me was to say that they need to go digital, basically, and saying, listen, brick and mortar, the retail stores that are brick and mortar that will survive are the ones that don't depend solely on game sales, like Walmart and Target. But if GameStop doesn't go digital, they will die.
Bam. Okay, so just literally just at the bottom, be like, go digital, rec 1, easy. You've already tied them into where you're headed.
Perfect.
Okay, and then on your recs, if you can go to the next. This is okay for like a introduction to recommendations. I would have liked to see one slide per recommendation with what, why, and the KPI associated with it. But here I just want to say your idea of the flagship experience store, guys, was amazing. I would have liked to hear more on how you're gonna build that out. I would have liked to hear more about how you're going to convert your existing customers to move to the digital platform. Like, why would they move to your digital platform? There's already 1 million digital platforms. YouTube is free. You know, there's options on options. Why would they go with you? And that's where you say stuff like our Power Up loyalty program, bam, we're going to leverage that. We have so many subscribers to our magazine. We're actually going to give everybody who moves to our digital platform a free subscription for a year. Like these are key ideas that tell me that you've actually thought about how you're going to make your strategy a reality. And I would have liked to see details like that in your implementation. Yeah. And so that takes us to implementation. That was really very, very fast. Again, I would have liked to see it fleshed out more. I would have liked to see an implementation slide per recommendation, and at least one of the 3 recommendations or implementations should have been fleshed out a lot, like every detail. Who is going to be running this team? What social media platform are we going to target? The magazine that we're going to leverage, like that amount of detail needs to be in your implementation plan. And then I'm just going to leave with last 2 points, and then BZ, I can leave it to you if you have any general feedback. You guys were missing your decision criteria slide, and you were missing your alternative slide. So I know it was in the brief, but it's basically you need to list what are the 4 or 3 driving key things that are important to you. Okay, so it may be customer acquisition, it may be profitability, it may be digital transformation. And then you need to list every idea you considered under it and explain to me why you didn't consider some of the ideas. Like, why didn't you just say we're going to pack up shop and go bankrupt? That's fine at this point. You know, that's but that is an alternative that you can put forward, right? You can just say sell, close shop, whatever. Okay, that's it. Easy.
But what you also want to do with your alternatives, which is why it's very important, especially in a competition, is some of the other guys might present those alternatives that you considered. So you want to show, some people just list a whole bunch of things that we could have done. You want to show realistic things that you could have done, that you thought about, and give good reasons why it couldn't work. So in this case, you could have said, we considered doing, and you're doing a little bit too much in any way. So if you said, okay, we considered this NFT thing, we thought it's a great avenue, it's a growing business, but we thought the current players are too entrenched, our current team, we already don't have a COO, we can't do everything. We don't think we can get foothold in an industry where we don't have any skills at the moment, or whatever it is. Then when the next team comes, the judges are going to ask them those questions. So that you kind of want to think about that, at least in a competition mindset. And then the last thing, perhaps on the financials, most teams just present a income statement or a chart with going from the bottom left to the top right, everything's going to go very well, without showing they thought too much about it. But remember, the financials are part of implementation. So you can still speak a lot about how you're doing things. It's all about the detail. And it's not about the 20% growth rate. It's about, instead of selling 1,000 consoles, selling 1,200, that means this for me. What does it mean for how I negotiate with my suppliers? What does it mean for my working capital? Should I cut my dividend? I'm still paying a dividend, but I'm not really making a ton of money. So there's a lot of things that's actually practical from a strategy point of view that you can address there to show you thought through it.
Thanks, VZ. Great job, team. Were you guys team 3? Team 4? Team 4. Well done. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and going first. I really appreciate it.
All good.
Great
Thanks.
first
Thanks
stab.
for all those quality feedback. It was really good. I made a lot of notes and it was a really good learning experience. So thank you for that.
Oh, fantastic. Amazing. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to call up team number 2.
Giovanni, apologies if there was a request if team number 3 can go next. One of their members needs to leave soon.
Okay,
That's
let's do
fine.
it. Team 3, team 3. Let me know when I should start the clock and who's presenting.
Before you start, it's team 3, Huet and Tracy. We are down 2 members and we really try to stick to the 3 hours. So be kind, especially you, Van Zyl, on the financials. Also, we are recruiting, guys. So if anyone here doesn't have a team and is strong in financials, please reach out to me.
Brilliant.
Okay, Giovanni, you can start the time.
Go for it.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Today, team 3 will be presenting GameStop's revival strategy. So we all read the case, and just stopping on the situational analysis, I think there are quite a few issues that is causing GameStop to be in the position that they currently are. One of the issues internally at the moment is that there is a brand new executive, which is not the CEO's choosing. So he has a team that he hasn't worked for and that he wouldn't necessarily choose himself, but he has to make it work. Further, revenue is falling and profit margins are falling. Sales per store is falling, and the share price, I think, is the biggest issue that is falling as well. The reason for that is that foot traffic in malls are obviously becoming less, and there's a massive move towards online sales. So GameStop, in effect, has a legacy business model that is not currently working for it and is not future-proof. One of the other issues in the time of big data is that the Powered Up Rewards program is very uncustomized, and they don't have a big data analytics department, but to their advantage, they have a very loyal existing customer base that they can leverage off. Looking at an external situational analysis, there's a massive move to digital gaming, which means that hardware and software is almost becoming obsolete. There's also a shift to online retail in addition to the online gaming. And like I said, there's a decline in mall foot traffic just because of that move to online retail. They are also in a very competitive landscape. They have issues with securing deals to sell, since many of the producers exclusively sell their own products. And they also have, of their 5,830 stores, those leases, a lot of those leases expiring in the next 2 years. So they really need to make a decision on their next move. So that really brings us to the owner's conundrum, and that is GameStop must understand the innovative steps that they can take to stay relevant in the very quickly changing landscape, and they also need to increase their profit margins by offering more value to new and the existing customers. So the value promise that we are making today is that at the end of this, you'll understand that we are offering a never seen before, one-of-a-kind vintage experience for both serious gamers and not so serious gamers. We will increase revenue, we will increase our customer growth by 5% per year, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to deliver about 10% in net profit. Discussing the key issues, I'll now hand over to Tracy.
Thank you. So we tried to kind of keep the key issues as top line as possible. They obviously have multiple issues, but the top 3 we felt were that the entire landscape, everybody is moving towards gaming online, digital gaming, and the kind of convenience of digital gaming. So there is a reduced demand for the purchase of physical goods, so hardware, software, and even perhaps vintage or pre-owned games. The other issue, which is clear, is the sales and profitability. They have significantly dropped as a result of a reduced demand for hardware and also lower foot traffic in malls. And if you consider how the world looks right now in the gaming community, the offering that GameStop has lacks value for their customer base, not only their existing customer base, because it doesn't really offer any customization for their existing loyal customers. And they have difficulty in attracting new customers because they're looking for something different. So if we look at our recommendations, so I'll go into a little bit more detail as we look at the implementation. But what we really wanted to do is create or rebrand and reimagine vintage gaming. So this would create a kind of fully immersive gaming world that's co-created, and it's a hybrid experience between online and offline. So people can really, it's part of their whole world. And the first recommendation, what we wanted to do is rebrand/reimagine a retail experience. So to reduce the number of stores, this would obviously be a lot more profitable without so many leases to have to pay, and establish kind of large concept stores. So for example, for every 10 stores, we would want to have one large store that's kind of fully immersive. People can go there, they can socialize, they can trial games, would be activation, celebrity gamers, that sort of thing. And revamp an online retail platform so that you can actually purchase your games or your consoles or whatever you want online, but quite simply. The second, and this is probably the biggest idea, the kind of blue ocean recommendation, is to create and leverage the charm of vintage gaming. So the first idea is to have a platform developed for gamers and game developers to co-create their own games. So what this means is they would create real-time niche and kind of indie games. So for example, if we have to go head to head with big competitors like Steam, it's the impossible task. We can't offer games that Epic can offer, but what we can do is create something really specific, really kind of intentional that satisfies a very niche market, and it would be informed by the game developers would be informed by the gamers as they're developing it. So it would mean that they would be making new games that the people actually want. They would get real-time data on what's cool and what's not cool. They would be able to use the custom insights directly on this new kind of platform. And they'd be able to leverage the big data of kind of trial usage of these games online. But again, I'll go into more detail about this as we go on. And the real-time experience of this, we wanted to use we want to make vintage cool again. So what does GameStop have in their arsenal? They have, if you look at their revenue streams, they've got hardware and they've got pre-owned. It's all kind of vintage. So the revenue streams, the business model, and their physical offering is old school, and we want to ride the wave of old school and make it cool again. So by leveraging, say, brand partnerships with retro hospitality institutions like, Starbucks or a diner chain or something like that, we want to create a hybrid and in-person gaming opportunity for these people. So gamers don't have to sit in their kind of little gaming desk in the middle of the night. They can actually go somewhere, they can game, they can trial, they can meet celebrity gamers. And then the brand partnerships would allow, say, if they close after, say, 5 p.m., the gamers would arrive at 6, they would have a full night experience together. They would be able to have kind of food and whatever it is that kind of branded or aligns to the activity of gaming. So maybe it's coffee, and then they can kind of game together and get discounts at these places. So when we say the dark experience, that's what we're talking about. And these would be kind of vintage tournaments. So again, fully immersive online, offline gaming world. And then lastly, we want to modernize the existing customer experience. So just looking at their Powered Up program is using big gaming data to understand what their gaming preferences are and offer them discounts or games specifically developed for them based on what they want. Shall we go to the first implementation slide? Okay, so I've spoken a little bit about this, but essentially we want to create this kind of Uber platform for gamers. So developers and gamers can work together on this platform, and they will in real time create new games that are cool, retro, vintage, and kind of start from there. So it offers indie game developers opportunity to sell their products and make money, and then the platform would take a margin from that. all kind of vintage game enthusiasts would be able to play and give feedback as it's being developed, and there'd be a pay to play access model for them to get involved there. We look at the next one, and we want to reduce the number of stores, but establish the concept stores. These stores should be really large. They should be social. They should have events. They should have celebrity gamers. They should have to be interactive, experiential. It should be something in terms of kind of this vintage retro branding that people want to be involved in. They want to be the OG gamers. They want to meet other gamers. They want to feel part of this community, but it's all established by the rebrand of this kind of vintage GameStop experience. And then the online retail platform, this is more to still be able to offer the convenience, but also to future-proof the business. So revamping the online store would increase the ease of purchase, and it would be also convenient for home delivery or download options. Okay, so the dark partnerships is what we're talking about, kind of brand and activity aligned, I suppose, aligned to gaming. So if there's if it could be hospitality, it could be even sports stores, anything that would allow the kind of concept of the game to match what they're doing and offer a live and fully immersive kind of game experience. And they would have benefits if they participated in this, like there would be discounts for gamers at these venues, live vintage gaming activations. They might even kind of be able to be part of an exclusive club if they attend certain number of events or do like Olympics and gaming Olympics or competitions like this. And they would be kind of, we're suggesting monthly nighttime vintage gaming events, but it could be, you know, weekly as everything kind of developed. Okay. And then the last is to introduce the big data analysis to customize the Powered Up program. So this is, as I said, to understand the gaming preferences, to understand what gamers want, what they like, what they're used to, what their demands are. And then these games can be either developed by the indie gamers or the indie game developers on the platform, or if they already exist, they could be marketed and advertised to them through their program. They might have, you know, if they play specifically at 2 o'clock in the morning, they might be able to get a special discounts for, you know, the nighttime events or something like that. And then we'd be able to leverage the data for personal gaming offers. Okay, so from a timeline perspective, we feel that we would be able to address the new software and create and develop it within 2 years. So we could obviously do a kind of beta launch and see how that fares and test it in the market. But we should be able to have a fully defined product within 2 years. The brand retail experience. So obviously building those concept stores are still going to take quite a long time, and the leases are expiring intermittently. They're not all expiring at once. So to reduce the number of stores would be based on the remaining leases that are still active. So we feel that this could be achieved in 5 years. The new concept stores, because they're so large, experiential, and kind of digitally forward, would also take 5 years for all of them to be launched, but we would be able to launch them kind of intermittently based on the areas that the leases are expiring. So for example, if there's one capital city in a state that has leases expiring within the first year, those would be prioritized to build the concept stores so that they're ready by the time those leases have expired. And then we feel that the online sales platform we could develop very quickly. So we'd be able to have it up and running within 6 months to a year, to be able to purchase consoles and hardware in the first year. From the vintage gaming presence experience, so the partnerships sometimes can take very long, or it can be very quick. The idea is that you would want to be able to purchase in those partner stores as well. So there is a distribution component into that as well. So if we would be able to start it up in the first 2 years, but obviously as the partnerships grow and, you know, these kind of niche sectors, if it's sports gaming or if it's, I don't know, vintage retro gaming, whatever the brand partnerships are, we should be able to roll them out within the first year. And then the gaming events would do intermittently every kind of month or every 6 months from the first 6 months onwards. Modernizing the customer experience, establishing big data, because that's digital, should be able to be done in the first year. Okay.
Thank you, Tracy. Sorry, I was on mute. So from a financial point of view, how are we going to finance this? So GameStop has quite a lot of cash alternatives available. So that would be used to fund the rollout of the concept stores initially. So just some of the assumptions that we made is that for every 10 retail stores that we have, we'll have one concept store. So as those leases expire, we'll have funds to fund the setup of the concept stores. And we said that the setup of the concept store, the cost of that is about 3 times the running cost of a retail store currently, which is about $320,000 per year, so about $1 million per concept store. Partnering with shops to create the dark experience, we'll do those partnerships as our retail shops closes so that we avoid having double entries within our financials. And because that is a shared space, we estimate that cost will be about 20% of the current running costs per store. We really want to replace the actual retail stores as they are with partner stores so that there will still be a wide network of those available to our current customers. So as I said, we have leases expiring. These are the numbers. This is 2023 and beyond. So these really are the running costs that we'll be utilizing somewhere else. And like I also said, we have quite a bit of cash available that will help. So from a cost breakdown point of view, as we got from our recommendations, what we want to do is concept store revamps, partnering with shops. That has a cost. We'll be revamping our online store pretty much from as soon as we can, establish a big data department, and that will be an ongoing thing. And then last but not least, creating our Blue Ocean vintage gaming platform. To create and maintain that is also a cost that we are taking into account. From customers and sales point of view, because there is a reduced demand for hardware in general, we assume that our sales will be reduced pretty much 10% per customer going forward, with a customer base growth of 5% taken into account. That will still increase our revenue. So looking at our customer base, currently we have 16.2 million retail clients and 5.6 paying customers. So we applied the 5% customer base growth on both of these projected forward. So then looking at forecast, like I said, our reduction in sales and increase in customer base will allow our sales revenue to grow. We worked with a gross profit of 30%, so cost of goods sold was assumed to be 70% of that, which is in line with what it is currently. But we will also be creating additional revenue through our platform. So because of the additional cost in the first year and the time that it will take, we don't foresee getting revenue right away. So there is unfortunately an additional cost at the beginning, which will affect net income, but this additional revenue will grow as we go. Operational costs, we assume that 75% of gross profit. It's not a massive reduction since the point really isn't to save cost, but to future-proof the business. So even though we will be saving on the cost of leases, those will be replaced by concept stores. We will have fewer staff, but the point is not, like I said, to cut costs. At the end of the day, we do predict a healthy net income with a gross profit margin of upwards of 30% and a net profit margin of just over 10%. That will hopefully fuel a rebound in the share price. I'm going to hand back to Tracy for risks mitigation and closing.
So the first risk we felt was that there is a time to market risk in that this industry moves incredibly quickly, especially in the digital space. So the time it might take to develop this custom online retail platform and the other platform, with competition might become obsolete. So mitigation would be to integrate existing e-commerce plugins like Shopify and use existing courier distributors in the first 6 months, just to ensure that we have established a footprint there. The second is the loss of existing clients. So with the move to this rebrand and concept stores, there would be a low awareness of the store closures and the move towards this concept and online store openings. So we want to start preparing our existing and loyal customers to make the kind of mental shift over to the new model by implementing drip marketing campaigns for at least 6 months prior to this concept store launch, with promotions at concept stores, launch events, and for existing and loyal consumers through the Power Up program. And then also do kind of pre-launch in-store activations and discounts for the gamers at the partnering retail stores. So if these partnerships have been structured in advance of their concept stores, we would invite our loyal base to attend those activations and already start benefiting from the partnerships, like discounts on coffees, etc. The third risk is that we feel there may be a slow uptake of a co-created vintage gaming concept. This is
Tracy.
the
So
time.
sorry to cut you off.
No worries.
That's fine. Fantastic. Thank you both so much for this presentation. I'm going to hand it over to VZ first for questions.
Thanks, guys. I think it was a good effort, and especially with the assumptions. I think, don't necessarily agree with them. We can speak about that now, but it shows you how much kind of more meat it puts behind the financials. So I think that was a good effort. Before we get there, we can speak about the strategy first. I just want to understand, you spoke about closing the stores. From that, you had that slide in your timeline where you showed how many stores you're closing. Am I right in understanding? Are you closing? I think it's one up. I think when you show all that's one, and the lease is expiring. Are you closing all those stores when the leases expire?
Yeah, so the plan is to move to different locations. If we have bigger concept stores, then the leases that we currently have will be meaningless, or maybe not adequate. And then as these leases expire, we'll also move into the dark experience. So moonlighting when other businesses are closed.
So kind of the concept stores and working with other in the partnerships. And what concerns me there, and I wonder what you think about that, is we've got quite big stores and we've got quite a big selection of physical games there currently. And I know over time the physical games are probably going to be replaced by digital, but currently we're making our money on those physical games. If we let 2,000 stores, if we let 2,000 leases expire next year, which is about 40% of our stores, isn't that going to impact us massively? We've got a big store with hundreds of different games there, thousands probably. Can we just pack up our stuff and take it to one of our new partners and put it in a kind of a concept store there? It feels to me like part of our offer is convenience, and part of that is having a big selection of games and having such a big selection, but now closing down our stores. It feels to me we're gonna lose a lot of revenues next year, 2019.
Yeah, so remember that as our leases expire, we will be rolling out our massive concept stores, and we'll also be developing our online platform and hoping to see more retail go through there.
Okay.
This is also supported by that kind of the drip marketing campaign, so everybody would kind of know, and the store closures would be, or the concept store development would be prioritized based on when those leases are going to expire.
Okay. We've been doing business from our stores in this format for many years, and our format is under pressure, but the malls are also under pressure. isn't it an opportunity for us to renegotiate those 2,000 leases at very favorable terms with the malls, seeing as they also, taking hits?
Can take
Yes,
this one.
it-
Go for it, Terence.
yes, it could be. But Vansel, from a future-proofing our business, what is the point? I'm not sure if that will create long-term value if we do know that malls are under pressure.
Okay, fair enough. I would have liked to keep more stores, and I think maybe there are some malls that we can renegotiate our terms at favorable terms, maybe linked to operating profit or something like that. But let's leave that. Sorry?
Sorry, no, I was just going to add to that that doesn't really add to a fully new business model. So if we want to really create a interactive and fully immersive experiential gaming world, having a couple of stores over the next 6 months is not going to add any value to the new model from a brand perspective. So I hear you, and it does make sense, but if we could have a physical footprint by having our products at the brand partnership stores available for physical purchase, it won't, in terms of like what Het was saying, it's not going to add value to the vision.
No, I get the vision. I'm just more concerned about next year closing 40% of my stores. Maybe a more, maybe a slower, maybe renegotiating shorter contracts linked to profitability so that we can at least phase this out in a way that doesn't scare me this much. And still achieve the vision would have given me more comfort. And my shareholders. My shareholders will also obviously look at this and get very worried about our plan. But let's stick with that. Just go to the big data center. I just want to chat about that for a second. You mentioned establishing a big data center. Are we building one on our own, or what? How does that? Can you just talk about that plan a little bit more? Are we actually building a big data center?
Yeah, do you want to say, or shall I? I can talk about it from a kind of customer lifetime value perspective. So the idea initially is, because of this time to market risk, we need to be able to use something existing that we can implement quickly and start using. So initially we would want to use kind of an off-the-shelf data analysis package to be able to start adding additional value to those loyal consumers. So if we know that they playing, if we know, even if it's 4 or 5 things that we can offer value immediately and try and drive up their lifetime value or their kind of basket price every time they purchase or play online or whatever it might be, it will really start adding a revenue that we could then in turn use to start customizing and building our own.
Okay, so we're not, I like it that we using other people's services for now. It worries me that I thought when you said establish a data center, I thought we're building and putting CapEx down to build something. I think there are quite good off-the-shelf offerings that we can use, given our current situation. And lastly, on the strategy, just before the financials, then I like the Indie That Gaming project. I think is quite a lot we can work with there. Can you give me a bit more color on how we will entice the developers to put their games on our platform? How will we then market these games? How many games do you think will be on this platform? Give me, and then obviously we've got a number of games. Talk to me about kind of the unit economics of these games. How much are we earning per game? How much is the developer earning? How do we make it worthwhile for them?
Okay, so how in the gaming world, the big kind of Epic, all of the big game developers, how they make their money is through kind of exclusivity. So I'm just using an example. If Diablo is exclusively played on PlayStation, you can't play Diablo on anything else. And that is, I mean, obviously that's driving huge revenue for PlayStation because everybody wants to play those games, and they have to play it on PlayStation. They can't play it on Xbox, whatever the case is. So those exclusivity deals or rights exclude the opportunity for kind of mid-weight developers to make any kind of real money. The only way they can do that is by securing those rights. So what we would be doing is offering them the opportunity to sell, to develop games with good insights, so they know that those games are really marketable and they're meeting the demands of the consumer base. And we would offer them a greater margin to be able to sell those games through our platform. So but they would also get cut of all those customers that are playing the games while they're being developed. So it's super lucrative for the indie developers and the kind of mid-weight guys that don't have those exclusivity rights. And what it does is, we are not going to try and secure exclusive rights for the big games. We want to establish our brand as being kind of not in opposition to that, but as something, a totally different value offering to consumers. So for us, it isn't about taking Steam down. It's about having a sustainable, future-proof model that adds real value to existing and new consumers. So, we don't want to go head-to-head with the big guys. We want to offer something that's of value to the base.
Thank you, Tracy. Can you just then on the financials go down to the cost budget again? You just pause here. Shivani, you can jump in for now. I just want to have a look at this to understand it a little bit better.
Ansel, I just want to remind you of my comments earlier that we are in desperate need of a CFO in our team. So that might explain some of the questions you might have on this cost breakdown.
Okay, that's fine. If you put a line in there for $2 million a year, then $2 million a year, then I might be in the market.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gia and Tracy. I'm going to keep it short because I'm sure VZ has some good financial technical questions. I think a big part of your strategy seems to rely or assume the fact that gamers want to socialize. I was just interested in where you got that assumption from. I didn't see a customer analysis or anything to back that assertion up. Thank you.
I can give you 2 examples of how this works. In reality, I don't know if you know any gamers, but if you play online, for example, if you play on Steam, you log into a platform and gamers socialize online, but they socialize in a time that's convenient for them. So it's very much a social game. Very few, well, I mean, based on nothing but my gut feeling right now, they don't want to play by themselves. They like to play in gaming communities, and there are loads of gaming communities that already exist online. And the others, I don't know if you're familiar with Plet Rage. So Plet Rage, which is the Matric After Party Festival in Plettenberg Bay, started as a gaming event. So what it was a warehouse of people gamers bringing their computers and their setups and the whole story to game socially for a week flat, and they would game day and night, and there's tons of examples of this. Dota is an example of this in Japan. So there is definitely evidence that gamers do want to socialize, but it is sometimes to game at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's very difficult to take your entire setup somewhere and game somewhere at 2 o'clock in the morning with other people when nothing's open. So that's where the assumption comes from.
Thanks. I would have liked to see that customer analysis done and demonstrated on your slides is what I meant. Thank you. VZ, you good?
Yeah, just from a practical point of view, and I'm not going to question the numbers, but first thing I'd look at is, okay, what's this thing going to cost me over the period? It's going to cost me, I think, 1.2 billion. And that's fine. You've done a good job there showing where we're going to get the capital from. That makes sense. Then on the next slide, I think you show me we're going to make about 600 million more net profit, 700 million more net profit. First thing I think, the financial guys, we're going to make almost 65% return on investment on an ongoing basis, so 65% ROE. Why didn't we do all of this long ago? So you don't have to answer that. I'm just saying, if you can tie this in with your costs, so that and then show me, okay, it's going to, as a final kind of comment on your financials, you can say, okay, showed you it's going to cost me 1.2 over the period. You showed me where the money is going to come from. You showed me a realistic return that's linked to this increase in profitability. And then obviously each of these lines are linked somehow to your implementation plan. Then everything is nice and tight. But if there's any gap between any of these things, obviously, then it just becomes, because the guys, when they ask questions in the competitions, they like to pause at the financials or something like that, because it's something that's often easy to pick apart. So you want to make sure those different parts, the cost budget, the assumptions, the return on investment, and all of those things are just linked very tightly. So that's a final comment, I think, from my side.
Thank you. That's very
Thank you,
useful
Kansel.
information.
For
I think,
non-financial people.
yeah, anybody's interested.
All right, thanks, VZ. I'm going to give you guys 2 or 3 just high-level points. Joet, you started with, we've all read the case. The second you're on stage, you're presenting to the board or the owner of the company. There's no case. You're a consulting firm, so you can't start like that. So I'm just giving you guys now the finer details, okay? And the transitions between the two of you, in general, everybody, transitions need to be great. It needs to be like, and now I'm handing over to my analyst, Tracy, who will walk you through analysis. Okay, so it shouldn't be like, who's presenting? Like, it should be seamless. Would love that. Otherwise, I feel like, to VZ's original point, I think this strategy is really unrealistic and would give a lot of like 80-year-old board members heart attacks because it's so intense. And in general, in a case competition, it's always better to go with like a less risky, almost like safe strategy that you can really back up than going with such a massive innovation or like a complete pivot. I just think it wouldn't really be realistic to put all your eggs in this like vintage market. But I liked your presentation because you guys were really gung-ho about it and you backed the shit out of it. Like, you're like, we're doubling down on the strategy. This is what we're doing. And you really lean into it, which if you're going to go that way, then that's great. Have a lot of implementation and finance backing with it, which I think you guys did a good job of. That's why I'm not like hypercritical, but I think your strategy wouldn't land because it's just too far out for your average Joe investor, right?
Siobhan, if I can just jump in there,
Yeah.
and I basically want to repeat what you said, but I think it's very, very important, especially in the competitions. Every case has an almost obvious thing that you have to do. So yeah, you have to downsize it. You've got to kind of do that. You have to try to get to digital somehow, and then you can add a moonshot. The way to win a competition is to take that completely obvious things and build it out very, very well. And then you add a moonshot as your third kind of recommendation. So I think as the basics, and this is, I think, what our team often did well, especially in the kind of the knockout rounds, when the cases become very difficult, you just do the obvious thing much better. It's like, don't hit it out of the park, just get that right. Tie every little thing in your implementation and financials together and do a dull strategy. And then that'll get you over the edge. Then as your third part of your strategy, where you can be aggressive in whatever you try to do for this vision, but you be conservative in implementation of that vision. So we have to do these 2 things right just to get us through this very, very tough period. We have this indie thing going for the future. Is going to be the GATE vision. We recognize it's a very difficult thing to achieve, and that's why we do it in kind of a slow and measured way, and we're measuring these things every year to kind of show us if we make progress. If it doesn't work, we cut our investment there. So just as a kind of broader strategy point of view, get those easy things out of the way and get that very tight. That's going to get you very far in any competition.
That's good advice. Thanks, Kansel.
Thanks, VZ. We're also going to talk about that hopefully at the end if we have some time, and how much percentage time to split between your recs. And VZ, you're a man of my own heart. Literally, my other comment was your whole strategy should be your third rec. Like, because it's so far out, it should almost be like a third
Yes.
future-looking niblet you're leaving them with. The first things you should have addressed is like stores, retail, all of that. My last comment, absolutely. Guys, you had zero analysis. Like, there was no analysis. I know you did like a situation analysis to tell us about what the situation is, but by analysis, I mean, like, who was your customer? See, you could have avoided my question if you almost drew out your customer, 31-year-old dude who needs to find a wife at a midnight gaming shop. Like, that's fine. And there was no competitor analysis. There was no market analysis, product analysis. I think that was a big red flag for me and a big weakness, and that would have docked you a lot of points because you've made a lot of assertions and built a strategy without an analysis. So there's nothing to back it up. Yeah. So focus on analysis.
Cool. Thank you, Shivani.
Thanks, guys. No, thank you both so much. Well done. Okay. Next up, we have team 2.
Cool beans, that's me. Okay, me and Borjo, just a quick disclaimer to Borjo's traveling at the moment. He'll be available for questions, but I'll be presenting. So there we go.
Should I start your time?
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, cool. So GameStop, new lease on life, or is it game over? There we go. Starting off with our situational analysis in terms of our context. Product analysis, we've got five different brands. They stretch across selling gaming consoles, game software and accessories, as well as a magazine and an e-zine. We do have a digital footprint, but mainly a physical footprint in the form of stores, over 5,000 stores spread across North America, Europe, and Australasia. Then our situational, our user context in the past used to be teen users buying shrink-wrapped video games that were one-player games on various gaming consoles. At the moment, as things have changed, our average profile is a 31-year-old, and online is first. It's always more multiplayer games, which result in communities. Then the primary gaming consoles in the market at the moment is PlayStation and Xbox. From this, we can take away that there is a new industry delivery channel, which is the streaming services. And then our competitors on the brick and mortar or traditional side or are Amazon, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, and Kmart. They stretch over, like I said, brick and mortar in the case of Target or Walmart, for example, as well as digital in the Amazon side of things, very reliant on logistics partners and supply chains. Then on the online side, downloads as well as streaming is Steam, Origin, and Uplay. It's a highly competitive market, and from this analysis, we can take away that we do need to increase our digital presence. This brings us to our owner's conundrum and our key issues. So how should GameStop position itself for the future gaming market trends? Based on a few key issues where the new consumer trends have changed dramatically and new trends have emerged. GameStop's financial health is in jeopardy as well. The delivery channels of games have changed. And then also the commercial mix available to GameStop has changed and is not the same as it were in the past. So our recommendation is to reshape the company strategy. So not necessarily pivot completely, but reshape it. And the way we are planning on doing that is the following. So this is our strategy. We're considering the following criteria. Our future growth. Are there future growth opportunities, profitability, and customer centricity? And then the alternatives that we considered is firstly to sell GameStop completely. Secondly, to change it to 100% online presence, or to reshape the company strategy in the mix that it currently is. And based on the matrix that we went through, selling GameStop doesn't have any opportunity for future growth. It might even out on profitability, but it is surely not consumer centric in any form or way. Selling GameStop would not address our consumers' needs. Then our second alternative we considered is going 100% online. That does provide opportunities for future growth, but it does not, unfortunately, address our consumers' requirements that to some extent are still in in-person game purchases, as well as buying some accessories and additional products. So reshaping the company strategy provides us with future growth opportunities, and it evens out our profitability, but it does address our consumer requirements, so it's consumer centric. And that is why we are suggesting this strategy. Additional benefits to the strategy is it does step towards market trends, and it keeps the community, but it grows the community as well. And then there is a profitability perspective, which all of these, along with some of the other action points that I'll go through, hopefully leads to success. The value promise of this strategy is it builds a sustainable business, it increases value creation, and ultimately it meets our consumers' expectations. Okay. This brings us to our action plan of how we will reshape the company strategy. We'll be starting off with the consumer, and then based on their requirements, I will be looking at the commercial mix and the delivery channels that we deliver games and our services through. So start off with the consumer. The first strategy regarding the consumer, we want to develop an omni-channel strategy to increase the consumer experience. So that's creating a fully integrated shopping experience where we unite the user experiences with multiple touch points, including web, brick and mortar, as well as mobile devices. A quick customer or a quick breakout on who our customers are. They are gamers, but these include heavy gamers, occasional gamers, as well as new gamers that are coming into the gaming world. And whatever we do, we must include all of them, as well as understand these segments' needs as well. So we're aware of those. So just why we're building this omni-channel strategy is we need to know our customers in order to offer a personalized experience, and then leveraging our existing database as well. And the way that we'll do this is conduct even further customer and segment analysis to determine the needs, as well as include data analytics tools to continuously analyze the customers as well as the effectiveness of the offerings. So we won't be building analytics tools. We will be leveraging tools that are already available. So that is our consumer. Heading to our commercial mix of how we want to reshape the company strategy is we would like to do that in two ways. The first one, to develop new verticals, and the second one is to improve the actual product mix. The reasoning behind this is strong differentiation versus competitors. We have a high profitability probability, and it allows us to align to our consumer trends. So on the new vertical side of things, we'll be developing streaming services, leveraging our current platform, our Game Informer magazine. And this will also be available on mobile, along with web. And then we would like to create play in-store experiences based on a subscription model of $25 monthly. Seeing as we will still have physical stores available, gamers will be able to go to physical stores. And then, just a little bit of an idea of what that play in-store experience would be. Is for the GameStop community, we would be able to host live esport viewing parties, even create our own tournaments. In the process of doing or presenting or providing those experiences, there would be opportunities to sell even more GameStop products, as well as food and drink, which is always important across the board. And this enables and provides the opportunity to meet and greet and play with potential influencers or just other gamers. So that is the first action point that we would like to do for the commercial mix. The second one is to actually improve the product mix. This also speaks to higher profitability, and it is specifically due to publishers not wanting to sell online codes. So looking at the financials, there are three sectors or segments that provide quite a high gross profit. These are the accessory segment, the digital currency and collectibles. We'd like to double down on those. And then additional to that, give special discounts to our GameStop community subscribers, and also diversify products for inclusivity and diversity, and possibly additional uses as well. So that is those are our two action points for the commercial mix. In terms of our delivery channels, we would like to move away from 15% online, 85% offline, to 55% online, 45% offline. That does lead to some significant changes, but it is due to consumers changing their shopping habits. So we would like to downsize physical stores by 35% over 3 years. Then that does come with a reduction in employees, so reduce the employee structure according to the reduction of the stores, and break out or increase our footprint by acquiring existing hub experience stores in developing markets such as Africa. So it's just a couple of numbers on reducing the physical stores. In total, we would be reducing the number of stores from, a number of stores to just over 3,000 from 5,000, and reducing employees from 61,000 to 21,000. So that is over 3 years. So 17% in the first year, 13 in the next, and 5 in the next. And this is linked to leases coming to an end strategically. Then acquiring new hub experience stores. Acquiring them instead of starting from scratch is quicker. And it grows our presence in a new market. Acquiring stores or these experience hubs also enable us to leverage an established consumer base within, for example, the African market. So that allows us to grow our footprint. Then from an implementation perspective, so implementing all of our action points, downsizing would be first. Like I said, that has a lot to do with when, or it's entirely to do with when leases come to an end, as well as the employee downsizing. There will be some store remodeling required for the remaining stores. This will take up the bulk of the budget. That is for refreshing the brand and also letting everyone know that GameStop is here to stay. This requires a e-commerce comms plan, leveraging all types of platforms available, the likes of TikTok, Instagram, web, and in some cases gaming influencers as well. And then also implementing those in-store tournaments. Then expanding to new markets will also be a considerable bulk of the budget over the next 5 years. Then developing the mobile app and to allow for the omni-channel strategy needs to kick off immediately, as well as implementing the analytics. This is all budgeted to just over $400 million US. And this brings us to the financials. So a couple of assumptions with an error in my slide. A couple of assumptions, including streaming and in-store experience services. We would like to aim for gross profit per segment of 50% and 40% respectively for streaming and in-store experience services, given the current gross profit per segment. Average spend on streaming platform is $25, not 27, apologies. And then from there, our sources of funding would be our own cash available, just over, 1.6 billion, and also bank loans where applicable. Our current percentage of debt is 67%. That would need to be reduced. Just the evolution of the commercial mix. So introducing streaming and in-store experience services, aiming to will bring in 17.5% increase of revenue by 2023. But that is only introducing streaming and in-store experiences after the reduction of some of our stores, as well as moving over to an online or web environment. So you can see it's increasing over here, and our new video game sales, for example, reducing. So our net revenue evolution, like I said, 17.5% of revenue from experience and streaming, with a compound annual growth rate of 1.5 over 5 years. Similarly, our gross profit evolution, with a compound average growth rate of 2.8 over 5 years. Then the net profit evolution is capable because of efficiencies resulting from downsizing and the lease contracts coming to an end. And the strategy will also increase our earnings per share due to the improvement of the net income. Just running through the risks. So a high risk is still game publishers' restrictions. The mitigation for that would be an agreement to pay a fee for these services. Then medium risks, actual customer rejection, as well as not growing as expected. Customer rejection can be mitigated by discounts and free subscriptions, and not growing as fast would increase or free subscriptions as well as extra promotions would allow us to mitigate that. And then the closing of commercial malls is a risk, but that's low because we would be able to accelerate our online planning. So in conclusion, how are we planning on positioning GameStop?
Sorry.
How are we planning? Okay, cool.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so
Cool.
much. Time is up. BZ, I'm going to limit you to one question.
Okay. Celeste, can you go back to two? Make it two questions. Can you go back to the risks and mitigations, please?
Sure.
You correctly identified there that restriction that game publishers, or the fact that the guys don't really want to sell their games, or don't want to allow us to sell their digital games. You didn't really address it directly in most of the presentation. You mentioned it here, and you mentioned that we can make an agreement with them to pay for this. Talk me through that, because it feels to me like this is an imminent risk. We don't really have a ton of money. If we start paying for this, will they agree for it in the first place? And secondly, is it the right strategy, or will the different game developers then just kind of suck us dry and strong on us?
Fair enough. Yeah, that should have been added as a financial consideration as well. Fatal, unfortunately, I can't give you a great answer there. I'll
Okay,
get back
so
to you.
maybe that's fair enough. Maybe as a pointer then, when you do risks in your slides, you want a lot of people, and a lot of people in these presentations often neglect. They've got a great intro, a great kind of broad strategy, but when they get to the nitty-gritty, they kind of drop the ball. You want to think about risk that's a real risk, but that you can address in a very good way as well. So there's an example that I always use with the finance guys from UCT. Let's say you've got a business that is a little bit capital poor, and you need to refinance your loans. If you say there's a risk I won't be able to refinance my loans, if you choose those words, it's a very difficult thing to address. But if you say the venture cap, so if you say the rates might increase going forward, interest rates might increase going forward, making it harder to renegotiate. You have more to work with, so you can then, as a mitigation, say, okay, we're gonna, if we see rates starting to go up, we're gonna negotiate fixed rate loans or whatever. So it's a little bit vague what I'm saying now, but the more detail you have with, you don't have to write out the whole detail in your risk, but the more specific you are, the better you can. The more specific you are, the better you can address it, and I think that's quite important. Have kind of a risk like this, yeah, they're just gonna cut you down. So I'll stop with my one question there, maybe, Shivani.
Thanks, Vansel. Appreciate it.
VZ, I don't have any questions. Why don't you go for your second one?
I think I'd rather make an observation, and a lot of it took very long, I think, to get into the tangible stuff. There was a lot of big MBA words, which is fair enough, but there was a lot of big fluffy MBA words for very long, and it took me very long to understand what the exact strategy is. So if you can be, I'm still not sure, to be honest. Not so I don't mean to be. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to give you. If you can be very tangible right up front using simple words, then you set the scene very well, because then you planted that seed, and it's very easy to follow through. There was somewhere in the middle of this presentation, I had omni-channel for the first time. Then I knew, okay, we're gonna go a little bit more into digital, and that's kind of the first time it became more tangible for me. That makes sense.
Okay, cool.
So right up front, plant the seeds, explain to them exactly in layman's terms, 3 sentences. This is what we're gonna do. This is what it's gonna look like, and then they anchor to that, and then you can fill in the detail from there.
Got it.
Thanks, VZ. I just want to make a general observation for all of you so far. I've seen owner's conundrum on your slides. That's just a perspective for you to think about the problem through. It's not like an industry term or anything. So don't put it on your slides. You can just say like overarching problem or something like that. Or you don't have to say anything. You can just put a takeout box and say, this is what we're trying to address. Celeste, I actually, I agree with what VZ said, but I thought yours was the best and so far the best solution to this case in terms of exhaustiveness and in terms of you addressing consumer, product, and channel mix. You did all 3 of those, but I agree with VZ is that it got lost in the detail because you missed one slide, and that slide makes or breaks it. Up front, have your recommendations, your 3 banked recommendations in one slide. All you did was you just said reshape existing strategy or something. That's super vague. Like, I don't know what that means, right? But instead, if you said our recommendation is consumer mix, product mix, channel mix, and then 2 bullet points under each, I would have known the direction or the roadmap that you were going in. But honestly, like in terms of exhaustiveness of strategy, for me, this was the best one. You went very deep. You addressed almost all the issues in a way that's practical. Yeah, that's so it was great. And I love that you also brought in like influencers and stuff. I think that's an easy win. New verticals, that was really great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, good analysis as well. Very good analysis.
Thank you. And thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah. One last thing, Celeste, I know this is a product of, or this is a result of your teammate being on the road. The reason why we have 4 people represent or present or 2 people, that it can become very monotonous and mundane if it's just one person presenting without a break. So it's easy to get lost in because all of us have a tone of voice and a tempo. So it becomes like, meh. So break it up with different people as much as possible. Best is 4 people at least with every section. I think I've broken that down for you guys already in a presentation, but more voices almost like wakes up the presenter, the panel if we get lost in the tone of the voice. Okay, that's really important.
Cool.
VZ, did you want to add anything overall feedback?
No, I think that's it from me. Thanks, Shivani. Thanks, Celeste.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks for the
you.
opportunity. This was cool.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to call on team 1. Is team 1 still with us? So.
Yes, we are. We're just very nervous. We don't want to do this anymore.
Why?
Jeez, that has been intense. Okay, just want to make sure everyone is here. Sorry, we're also down a few members, like most of our teams today. Zandi, Tembi, are you guys in?
Yes, I'm in.
Okay. Cool. Just give us a sec.
No problem.
Guys, I just want to say well done on the quality of the presentation so far. I know it's been a hectic week. We also had an event on Thursday, but really impressed with the quality of it so far. I'm quite looking forward for the first real competition that we can compete in. And again, yeah, Shivani, Vansel, thank you. I think the feedback is invaluable.
Yandere, thank you for being good cop now, because I feel like VZ and I are the ones who are just
No. It's straight, needed true, real feedback. I think everyone's finding it very valuable.
Great. Okay, team 1, ready?
I think so. Okay, hi
Okay.
everybody. Okay, cool. Hi, so presenting for team 1 is going to be myself, Zandi, and Tembi. So I'm just going to jump straight into the presentation. Okay, so for us, the situation, I'll go with the situational analysis. So first of all, GameStop is a video game retailer that has been in business for almost 40 years, right? And it has been one of the biggest video game retailers in the world and was mostly successful up until recently. So for our end, we saw that the shift to digital gaming and online streaming has been one of the biggest reasons for the decline in sales of physical games. So these would be the walk-ins of clients. And then GameStop has tried to counter this by also offering other services such as the reselling of used games, as well as repairing of game consoles. But that has not really, mitigated the decline that has been taking place. So these services has not been able to offset the decline of these physical in-store purchases. GameStop is also facing an increase in competition that is online or from online retailers such as Amazon, Best Buy, as well as Target, amongst others. So GameStop really needs to find a way to adapt to the changing landscape of the video game industry. So we felt that the owner's conundrum. So ours is, how does GameStop regain its profitability and competitive advantage in the evolving gaming industry? I'm going to hand over now to Tembi, who's going to take us through our value promise. Tembi, over to you.
Okay. Looking at what our solution will be to this owner's conundrum, we're looking to increase GameStop's overall profitability by 40% in the next 12 months. We also are looking at ensuring that the business is fully digitized to ensure that there's a reduction of operating costs by 30%. We also would like to increase the digital footprint to claim 25% of market share, as well as establish a digital platform that's accessible to all our customers, which is both the ones that are currently digital and those that are utilizing our media print. Okay. Right. We identified a few key issues that we would like to address with our recommendations. So going through the key issues, the first one that stood out for us was the inability to use data analytics for customer optimization. So yes, GameStop does have the resources that can analyze data, but not in depth to actually understand our market and our customers. We also noticed that there's a decline in the purchase of games at physical locations, looking at the direction of gaming at the current moment. And then we also realized from the CEO's observation on the top management that the roles that they currently have are quite rigid and are occupied by the more mature personnel over 50 with quite extensive experience in the world, but for us, it didn't look like they were in touch with current trends in gaming. Also, there's an increase in competition from online digital competitors, and that has led to GameStop not being a dominating force in the gaming space. Marketing, it's something that we realized that due to the lack of data analytics, they were not making use of to actually convert the data that they had access to into useful information. And lastly, our operating costs are quite high due to the high labor force, which is due to the number of stores that we have. On to the next one, please. Okay. And from the key issues that we identified, we came up with a few recommendations. Firstly, using data analytics to make recommendations to customers and use the information to manage our product offering. What we mean by this is that we would data mine and look at what our customers are actually utilizing, what games they're playing online, and then we would use that information to recommend new games or existing games to them that they would be able to play online or to purchase online, and also using this information to increase our catalog that would increase our product offering. And moving on to reducing the number of physical stores. What we wanted to do with this, or what we want to do with this, is to reduce our operating costs. Looking at the number of physical stores and the direction in which gaming is currently moving, we thought that it would be best to reduce the number of physical stores because we aim to go digital. And then with marketing, we would like to partner with digital content creators such as YouTubers to create a hype and a buzz around GameStop, and also we would also like to create a digital platform to enable customers to play and live stream games. And then for management, what we thought would work, or our recommendation, is that we would invest in attracting a younger demographic, for the senior management roles that are in touch with the gaming landscape currently. I'm going to hand it over to Zandi. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to check if I'm not okay. For our implementation, we split it up into 2 parts. So month 1 to 3 and month 4 to 12. So we said the first thing that we would do is to create the digital platform with built-in analytics to offer a wider selection of games and accessories. So essentially what we mean by that is that firstly, it can help us, the data analytics can help us create a dashboard for our users to show games which they play and recommend them for them if we have new games, and then they'll show up on their dashboard. And it will also help us with our profitability in that we will see which games people are mostly playing, then we will be able to invest in those games more. And then partnering with content creators to create a hype around a digital platform. So this was also going to be in two ways. We decided because the YouTubers that were mentioned had a large following, so we wanted them to do almost like walkthrough on our digital platform to then go onto it and actually play a game or live stream a game so that their large following can know about our site. But then we also thought another way to engage with the public would then be running competitions through the content creators, because then would be able to get the numbers and would be able to then get engagement as well from their following. And then identifying the least performing physical locations and shutting them down. So we'd look into the locations where there's not a lot of traffic in it, and we're also not generating any profit. So we'd look into closing just those shops down, but retaining the ones that still have a lot of traffic. And then from shutting down, we will then repurpose and migrate staff from these stores to the digital platform. And then it can be phased out over the next 10 months. So the closing down of locations won't be in that 1 to 3 months. It will be a process throughout the year. And then the way we were thinking we could repurpose the staff is that if the online users have a problem online, the online staff would then be able to help them immediately. So in that way, we can repurpose them, and it's not just retrenching a lot of people. And then from month 4 to 12, we will roll out our online presence whilst continuing data mining for continuous improvement. So with the data analytics that we will get, we will use it to constantly refine and improve our site, and also to provide video games that we know that the users are interested in. And also we'll use a different hiring strategy to attract a younger demographic for the senior management roles, so that they're more clued in on what we should be doing to stay competitive in the market. And then for financials, we just decided on doing a more simplified approach that's to the point. So we said we're looking to increase our net sales by 20%, and then our cost of sales will decrease due to the closing of stores. And then essentially it would increase our gross profit by 40%, and our net sales would increase because we still retain the profits from the consoles that we're selling or trading in, and then we'll now get new revenue from the digital platforms that we create. And then on the cash flow statement, we said this would increase our cash flow by 20%. And then for risks and mitigation, we said the first risk would probably receive pushback from current management on the migration process, because they might not fully understand where we're trying to take GameStop. So we would use change management frameworks to ensure buy-in from the managers, so that it can make even the recruiting of the younger staff a bit easier. And then we also considered that data privacy might be a risk, and then we'll ensure to have state-of-the-art cybersecurity to protect customers' information. And then competitors will continue to expand their market share. So we thought, whilst we are doing our migration to digitization, our competitors are also continuously growing and improving their brands, so they won't wait for us to finish up. So in trying to keep up with our competitive edge, we will use our data analytics to not only get on the digital platform, but to stay abreast with our competition. And also there's a high dependency on cloud infrastructure. So then we said we'll partner with a service provider that has adequate cloud infrastructure, and we'll also keep backups as well. And then Soso will continue for us on closing.
Okay, thank you so much, Sandy. So in conclusion, we said that through our new digital platform, we believe that there will be an increase in our market share and digital footprint. We also believe that there will be an increase in cash flow and profitability and a decrease in operating costs if the company goes with our recommendation of migrating into the digital space. We also believe that through partnering with content creators on various social media platforms, including YouTube, we will increase our market visibility. And then lastly, we want to also ensure, or we will also ensure that in the investment, we want to invest in a shift in our management strategies, as well as the recruitment recipe through the combination of traditional and new age thinking. And that is it from us. Thank you very much, everyone. Questions? Please be nice, guys. We don't have fathers. We're orphans. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I don't know if VZ's still on. I know he had to just step away for his baby. Hey, VZ, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Ah, cool.
I think I don't have any questions that we didn't really cover in the previous feedback session. So I think there are two comments that I think I would make. First, on the financials, obviously you're going to need a hell of a lot more detail there. What you're showing is a massive increase in your margin because you're increasing your revenue and you're decreasing your costs. So your margins are, I think your margins are probably completely unrealistic. But to make it convincing, you're going to have to go into a lot of detail. Detail to the point of unit economics. So if you say we're going to get this much in margin, you got to explain to me, Pansal, you're wrong, you're not understanding this. We're selling new digital products. The margins on those are 90% instead of the current 30%. The product mix is we're currently selling 100 physical products. We're going to sell 10 physical products and 90 digital products, and that's how the margin mix is going to change. So there's a lot of, the first thing, if you see that increase in margin, you think, oh, I don't get this. So it doesn't mean you can't explain it, but there's a lot of, you can probably have a lot of detail to dive into that. And then on the positive side, and I think what's interesting in terms of the feedback from the previous presentation is that like Shivani and I, the judges have different kind of, your minds, people's minds work differently. I've got a short attention span and focus on detail, and Shivani gets the big picture stuff much better than I do. What I liked in your presentation is you use the words, what it means and what it looks like and what this does quite a few times. So for me, so just as a practical pointer, for me, that kind of, if you do explain a kind of a project or detail about implementation, and you use those words, then and you can explain the next thing, and you can explain the next thing. So let's say we're going to do a marketing budget. What does this look like? A marketing project. What does it look like? What does it mean? That using those words work well for me. I don't know if Shivani feels the same, but I think that helps you to flesh out your points very well. So I think I like that. But
VZ, thank you so much. I don't have any questions, but I'm actually just going to go through my feedback if that's okay. guys, you had like 7 minutes left. So you could have gone in a lot more detail, painted a very vivid picture, done a lot more work. I just want to say, I forgot to mention Celeste's presentation, but Celeste, you were the only one who did a decision criteria and alternatives. Good job there. So, and to your team, you guys missed that. You didn't have decision criteria, you didn't have alternatives, you didn't have a matrix highlighting that. And I'm just going to start really quickly from the top, from the first page already, where you guys kind of had your goals. Could you take me there where it said profitability 40%?
Which,
oh no,
oh,
yeah,
you
that's
promised, yeah.
So from this point on already, I was like, this is not going to be a realistic strategy because no company can be turned around in 12 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's literally impossible. And you guys are literally introducing a whole new platform, which you said you'll somehow build in 3 months. Remember, realistic is important, practical is important. And even this increasing profitability by 40% in 12 months is just, it would literally be impossible for any business. So make your assertions practical. If you said increase overall profitability by, I don't know, whatever, 5%, then I could already go with it, even if you didn't back up that assertion. But in this case, now I'm already looking to dock you because your assertions are so large. And then here it says you'll gain 25% market share on digital platforms. I mean, GameStop is so far behind on the digital platforms. Other organizations already have like 10, 15, 90 million users. We're nowhere there. How are we going to gain 25% market share? Is massive. That is huge. Like if you said something like 1 or 2% market share globally, that could even be believable. This is the huge assertion that I also already wouldn't have gone with. Then on the key issues and rec slides, guys, too many. I know we talked about it last time. I want to see no more than 2 to 3 key issues, 3 max. And even with recommendations, no more than 2 to 3. As a judge, I'll just be like, okay, you highlighted so many issues, but you only addressed like 2. Yeah. So that don't set yourself up for failure. And then to VZ's original point from presentation 1, you're presenting to the board. You can't be like, oh, sorry, you guys have a bunch of old dudes. You need to fire yourselves and replace yourselves, right? That wouldn't go down well as a recommendation. Okay, to the implementation timeline, again, 3 months to build a digital platform. Could you go to the timeline really quickly? I mean, 3 months to build a digital platform. What about like user testing? What about beta testing? What about pilots? What about rollouts? This is, you can already see I mean, a whole new digital platform would take a few years to become like well entrenched, right? Especially if your whole recommendation is relying on this. And then repurposing and migrating staff, like you guys didn't even have to bring this stuff up. I mean, it's like red herring stuff. It doesn't really have anything to do. In America, there's not a big labor union culture. It won't really be a problem. But I understand, like from a South African perspective, of course, these are things that are front of mind for us. Can you go to the financials? Yeah, so here I see that you said like an increase in net sales and then a decrease in cost of sales. And to back that up, your team said it's because we're closing a bunch of stores. What about the costs associated with building and running this digital platform, right? I didn't see that being accounted for.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my general overall feedback.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that was a lot. Well done though, teams, all of you. Thank you so much, everybody. If you want to know who my final winner is Celeste / team 3, I believe it was. So well done for me. VZ, I don't know who your choice would be today.
I think the second team I think the second team, there were a few gaps, but I think they did a good job backing it up, and they did a good job with the assumptions, which gives it that little bit more tangible feel.
Brilliant. Okay, teams 2 and 3 are tied. Well done, teams 2 and 3. The rest of you, I hope you took lots of really great, well, actually all 4 teams hopefully took a lot of great points home on how to make your presentations more well-rounded, how to compete aggressively on the scale. I have a few things to close this out. I have a little deck ready, so I'm going to take about 10 more minutes. But VZ, do you want to, can we thank you, or do you want to hang around?
I've got a couple of notes that I usually send out to the UCT guys, just on the finance specifically. I mean, I don't know, I can send it out or I can talk through it. I don't mind, whatever. I don't know what your timeline looks like.
No, I'm always around to help the team, like not a problem. I think we have VZ here. If everybody's okay, I would love, are you guys okay to get some great finance points from VZ?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. I just threw this email into slides, so it's not pretty slides. Don't judge me on that. There are a couple of notes. I'll send this out. You can read through it. A lot of this I probably will be repeating myself. It would be things that I touched on already. When I speak about the financial stuff, when I start the financial part, I often like to remind the judges, this is for competitions, I often like to remind them what they should be thinking about. Because remember, these judges scan through the presentation, the case very quickly before. They haven't thought about it as hard as you have. It's often good to remind them what they should be thinking. And then you're obviously going to give them the answer to what you told them. So if it's a young company, you want to tell them what's the obvious issues that you think about. You need to raise capital. You need to show revenue growth so that you can raise that capital and at your next VC rounds or whatever. If you're a turnaround, you're worried about your share price is down. That doesn't impact you that much. But if you need to raise capital in the open market, you can't through a share price. You see this guy's probably worried about being fired because I think there was 6 CEOs in 36 months or something like that. So think about what he's worried about and remind them, because they don't necessarily know. Be rational but creative. This is the part where we spoke about getting the basics right first, and then you can add the bit of creative flair thereafter. Just practical things. Always present a budget. You're going to work, if you're 4 in a team, I don't know how your formats will work. If you're 4 in a team, you are going to, the finance guy and the implementation guy will work together very closely. If you do many cases, you're going to get to know each other very well. That implementation part where you speak about the detail and what needs to be done, that goes straight into the finance and the budget. And then you don't have to speak about everything. Some people in the presentation speak about all the little detail, not yours, I'm talking just generally. Every little detail, show you know what to prioritize, show you know where the most money is going to be spent. A nice thing to also show is to focus on the speed of spending. So we're going to spend X amount in the first year on that project, then the next year this will become priority. So that's obviously from a financial point of view important, because I need to know where I need to raise money, I need to plan my cash flows, all of that. So that's an important thing. I'll show you 3 or 4 slides here. They're not perfect either, but just to give you a bit more color behind it. Obviously, you have to tell them how they're going to finance that, and that will depend very much on what type of case it is and what type of business it is. For the forecasts, what I like to do is to have a very detailed model, but then show that you can identify the most important things in that model. I'm going to just flip forward. So what I often do, this is not a very detailed model, but to give you an example, you have a model. Yeah, I focused on revenues. This is the old revenue stream, the new project's revenue stream coming up. The next slide. So this stays the same. The second part of this recommendation was to decrease raw material costs. So there were three things that I identified as what I think is important. The table, your forecasts remain the same. You show which things are important. And this way you can quickly go through these things. And what I'd often do is you don't have time to discuss all your assumptions, all your detail, because the finance part's quite short. So when you open this part, you say, you kind of want them to come, if you did a good job here, you want them to come back to this in Q&A, because Q&A is long. If you can speak about well thought out things here, that burns up a lot of time, Q&A. Otherwise, they're going to start nitpicking other stuff. So starting at this part, I'll say, okay, this is my full model. I'm happy to discuss this in the Q&A. I want to highlight three important things, the three most important things, and then I speak to the charts, not the table. And then we come back to the table in the Q&A. You know, that's what I said there. I love discussing that detail in the Q&A. They often spend more than half of the time focusing on the financial stuff. If you did a good job, they're not going to question your strategy then. Then they just focus on a little bit of the detail. Dumb it down to drivers. So include a slide describing these assumptions. So the drivers, the further up you can go, the better. So if you can go into number of stores. So before, don't start your forecast with the revenue line. Start your forecast with a number of stores line, or a number of tickets sold, a number of website visits, whatever it is. If you can go down to that actual driver, that gives me something to understand as one of the judges. So if you say you're going to increase profits with 50%, I don't know what that means. But if you tell me I'm going to increase website visits by X amount, I'm going to increase conversion rate by X amount, these are going to be, you know, the average sales item is $5, and that feeds my 20%. That makes a lot more sense when you build that model and when you're talking about it. So you have your quantity drivers and your top line. You've got your cost drivers. You've got your margins. You've got to think about operating leverage with that last example. Your cost of sales is not going to go down because you close shops. Cost of sales is the cost of the actual hardware or CD that you're selling. Your stores are in your operating costs, not your cost of sales. And the way those things move in relation to each other obviously has operating leverage. So it's important to show that you understand that. You can, if you do a lot of these things, it's important to know what margins are reasonable for different industries. If you have a retail store and you show me 15% margins, I know from the get-go that you don't know anything about retail. So you've got to have just a kind of ballpark figure of what margins are reasonable, and you can often kind of re-engineer that by looking at the asset base. Couple further points. Yeah, consider the debt, cash runway, payout ratio, all of that. In the first case, in this case, for example, they're still paying dividends. I would have said something about reconsidering that, or at least if you think it's fine, I would have mentioned that. As a finance nerd, that's something that's kind of peculiar. This is a dying business. You're either going to pay out, either going to close shop and pay out everything as dividends, or you're going to have to hold a bit of capital back if you're going to reinvest and build this business. You have to show the ROI. There are different ways to calculate that. Won't go into the detail, but they're going to want that. That's tying your cost budget and your forecast together and saying, okay, it's going to give you a 20% return on investment or whatever it is. It has to be reasonable. It can't be too much. It can't be too little. Then invert. I think this is a very important. If you can, before you even start with a lot of these things, you can just think practically. How much money does this business have to make it reasonable for the judges? Consider their asset base, consider their revenues, consider what's practical. And then you can think, okay, they should be making X amount, 100 Rand. If I know that number of 100 Rand, I can say, okay, I need to get a 15% return or 20% return on my investment. So I can spend 500 Rand. I suddenly have a budget. Now when Shivani tells me, we're going to do a pie in the sky thing, and I only have 500 Rand, I can say, Shivani, we've got 500 bucks. We've got to think about where to spend it. So if you start by thinking like that from the get-go, it kind of gives you the boundaries in which you can move. Then suddenly you won't think, okay, we're going to do all 5 these different strategies because we don't have the money. We're going to do these 2 because this is kind of what it's going to cost. This is what we can afford. Then that's that. Blah, blah, blah. You can ignore that. This is a duplication. I just threw this all from an email now. Slides of this implementation budget, you can have a table in the back, but in my slides I often just did something very simple like this. Shows the 3 biggest parts and shows a timeline. Promotional activities would be right up front because now it gives me something to talk about. This is, and it shows them I know which expenses to prioritize. This is just an example of a slide this you saw, and then the risk, the sum mentioned, with the risks and mitigation, focus on things that are real but that you can address, and then kind of frame it in a way that you can address it quite well. You also want to use this to kind of think about, in terms of the risks, and it links to the alternatives, but you want to use the risks and the alternatives to highlight things for the judges to think about that they might use to ask the other competitor or the other teams. So if you can do a good job here, you give them ammo to target to make life difficult for the other teams. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the final points that I wanted to add.
Thanks, VZ. Does anybody have any questions for VZ?
I guess not questions, but thank you for sharing some of the graphs that you have in there. It's quite helpful to help me think about how to present some of the information, because sometimes it's not easy talking to a table that's just got a bunch of numbers. And what I noticed happened with me as well, I guess this is now a personal reflection, I kind of lose myself in the numbers, trying to speak to the numbers because there's so many of them on the slide. So this makes it, the graphs make it a lot easier to talk to your key points and to pull them out, actually.
It's very helpful to kind of show you, what, or at least your assessment of what the important drivers are. But having the table, even if it's in the back, is very helpful, because when they start questioning nitpick any details, they love doing that. Then you can go to that table, and if it's well thought out and it's linked to your drivers, then it's a very impressive tool to show them that you thought through everything.
Something else that VZ did a lot in our slides also is he would just bold the numbers he wanted to speak to if it was like a massive chart. So he remembers which ones he wanted to point to. And while I have VZ here, because basically in our team, VZ and I mostly did the fielding of the questions and the answers. I just want to speak to that to all of you as well, because Q&A is a big part of it and you get graded on the Q&A. Something that I noticed today, guys, if a judge asks you a question, you can't get defensive. You can't be like, well, I did talk about it, like it's right there. It's always like, thank you so much for the question. And you answer it once and you don't defend yourself and come back. And your other teammates can't be like, and to add to that. Okay, so only one person. So we all made eye contact with each other. Whoever was most confident stepped forward. We all agreed, and that one person dealt with it in one go only. Okay, you can't keep trying to field the same question, because it also shows that you don't have confidence in your other team member. If you speak, you say what she meant to say was, so that's not a good vibe. All right, so that's the best way to field Q&As as well. I'm very mindful of time, but I want to cover 2 or 3 very important things today. So I'm going to share my slide. VZ, so sorry, I love you a lot. Thank you so much for coming. Do you want to stay on for more thank yous, or would you like to bounce?
No, I think I'll drop off now. But thanks a lot for all the presentations. I think you guys did very well, and it's sometimes the feedback is tough, but none of it is personal. I think we did a lot of these cases, and sometimes it's very hard, and cases are meant to be hard. The last point that I'll leave on. If you compete in a competition, and if you do a case that's impossible, remember that the guys that compete against you have the same case. So some of these cases, and I refer back to that insurance case that we did, I thought that was horrific, and that was in the semi-final, I think, and we won by a wide margin, and I thought we were going to fall out, and then you kind of realize afterwards, like, everyone had to struggle with the same thing. So if you can take what you've got there and make it practical and tie things together, you're going to get far, even though sometimes it's going to feel like this is a bullshit case. So on that, French, I'll drop off. Thanks everyone, and thanks Shivani.
VZ, don't need it. Thank you so much, so much. Honestly, you're a wealth of wisdom, and I'm so lucky to have you in my network. And now all of you have VZ in your network. Please find him on LinkedIn, connect with him, harass him. Sorry.
No
but
problem.
I'll make sure that I get those slides from VZ, and I'll make sure that all of you have them, or VZ can send them to you, whatever works. Cool.
Sure, perfect.
VZ, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers, good luck. Bye.
Okay, with that, again, mindful of your time, there's only like 2 or 3 hot things that I'm going to share. I had a deck prep for today, but that's okay. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna skip that. Okay, I wanted to talk about analysis today because I thought that we were all a little bit lacking on analysis. So I want to just share maybe a couple things I would have done in this case. I would have definitely done some sort of value proposition. So what by value proposition, I mean, what is the value that GameStop brings to its customers? At the end of the day, this has to be a very customer-centric approach, and reminding us and reminding the judges of what makes us uniquely different to our customers is very important. I didn't see any of you do a value proposition for your customers. Should have been its own whole slide. Like, I don't know, like if it is the vintage thing, then, oh, we still do CD swaps or whatever. And we have an amazing magazine, and we have a great loyalty program. All of these should have come through in your value proposition to your customer. Thankfully, most of you did a competitive analysis. That was a really easy win. Remember to always pull out a takeout box with the conclusion of what the point of that analysis is. I didn't see this in a lot of you, and this was key. The product portfolio mix was essential to all of you in your guiding strategies. No matter which approach you went with, you should have spoken about how their product mix is getting too crazy now. They can't handle it. Some of it needs to be axed, whether it be like brick and mortar stores, whether it be consoles, whatever it needs to be. You guys should have done some sort of analysis on that. And I just want to show you maybe what that would have looked like. So we talked about this last time. This is called the Boston Matrix. It's a really great way to show to your judges that you've really thought about your product mix, and you've identified things that are dogs that need to be out of your basket now. You've identified stars, you've identified cash cows, right? So maybe star would have been in the future like a digital mix, but a cash cow can be the consoles because, you know, they're expensive and people are going to keep buying them, something along those lines. Yeah. For that, this is where I questioned one of the teams. You guys should have really looked at declining sales or declining profit margins, or places where you actually have a huge profit margin, and we should have focused on those things. So these are really quick wins for you to assess your product mix. Yeah. The other thing that a lot of you should have done to to speak to your strategy is something called an Ansoff matrix. And that's where you talk about product versus market. Many of you talked about new markets. We're going to enter new markets. Guys, that's a whole strategy. I mean, you can't just put in one line in your implementation plan. If you're going to enter a new market, that takes a lot of work to build out. So suppose you're going to enter Asia or China, whatever. You have to talk about how you have zero ground presence there, right? So now you're talking about a new market and a new product because you aren't in the digital space 100% yet. A new market, new product is the worst place to go. Almost nobody ever recommends this as a strategy. So kind of veer clear from this in general. Yeah, but I would have liked to see an Ansoff matrix, some sort of Boston matrix, any of these in your analysis slides. So I just want to highlight analysis was a bit weak today for everybody. So keep working on that. That's very, very, very important. This builds the story that feeds your implementation plan, that feeds your recommendations. The other thing that I want to talk about was the decision matrix. All but one teams missed this. This is kind of what it, based on the decision matrix, you're going to highlight the alternatives, kind of like Celeste did, and decide which ones to not go with. The great news about this case was the case up front in the introduction talked about what your alternatives were. So they literally said, should we sell, should we merge, should we downsize, should we pivot? I didn't hear that come through for a lot of people, and that was such an easy win to just say, okay, we're going to go with a pivot. We're going from brick and mortar to digital. Yeah, or we can say merge. Hey, this Ubisoft isn't doing so well, but they've got a great product. We're going to try to merge with them and gain their customer base and their amazing games, right? There were a lot of options you could have come with in terms of alternatives that I would have liked to hear. And then the last thing that I want to speak to, I'm not going to speak to financials because VZ did a great job, but implementation. In implementation, it needs to have so much detail. You need to spend 5 whole minutes talking about your implementation plan. But the easiest way to do that is not build all 3 of your recs out completely, okay? You just build out the one rec, which is your 60% rec. This is your main rec, right? Your main rec should be linked to your owner's conundrum. It should speak to your key issues, and it should address your key issues and create value, okay? It should have complete details. Even if you want to throw in the name of the guy they just hired from PF Chang's who did their digital transformation and be like, James Bell is going to lead our digital transformation at our company. That's the level of detail. We're going to launch on TikTok. Like that is a level of detail you need to have in your 60% rec. Okay, that can be 2-3 slides. It can be like, how much is this going to cost? How long is this going to take? Then you're going to have your 30% rec, which is half the size of your other rec. It's just to cover all the other bases. So, hey, maybe you only talk to 2 key issues, but you still have 1 more key issue. You'll come up with some bullshit rec for the second one, right? And the third one is literally the future looking one. So like we talked about with the indie games or something. So where you just kind of leave them with a titillating look at the future and you don't spend too much time on it. Yeah. So this is how I would recommend you build out your recs. It's the best way, and your implementation plan. VZ already spoke about this, but really important, guys. Remember to break down cost by product, by channel. Be very clear about your costs. Be very clear about your revenue growth and your profit, all of those. Okay, just a quick reminder, if you did not plan your 3 hours of work this way, somebody asked in the chat, how long should maybe financials take? The individual work plus slide building is a total of 1 hour and 15 minutes. But the reason I said 35 minutes is because a reminder, in competition format, you only have 2 laptops. Okay, so one person is only going to have half of this time to build their actual slides and do any of their individual work. And then this is the presentation format. Just a reminder, once again, if you're struggling, your intro should only be 3 minutes. Your analysis should be long and deep, should show all of that strategic work that you're doing to support your recommendations. Then your implementation should be nice and long, talking about implementation timelines. Yeah. And then you go into finance and risk and you close, followed by a Q&A. Great. That's it.
Is that it? It feels like there should be more. We've been on this whole learning journey and wow, now we've come to the end.
Well, it's not the end. Yander, I would love to propose having a more competition format style face off with the GSB. So when you guys are ready, when you're happy to do it, I would love to propose a time and a date to make that happen.
Absolutely. We are very keen for it, and I'm pretty sure we will be able to organize it this year. Shivani, again, I'd just like to give you a massive thank you for you and Van Zyl to make the time. You know, to my knowledge, I think this is the first time that us as the Stellenbosch Business School, definitely the Consulting Club, has gone through a program like this. It's no surprise that you guys have won. I think to see the structure, to see the detail that goes into it, it's really valuable. So again, thank you. I'm sure everyone got a lot of value from this. To everyone on this call, also thank you to you for offering up your free time, committing to this learning journey. I found it very valuable. I mean, just key takeaways from today, just from firstly simplifying the tasks. Like any case study will have the, you know, the typical objectives. Is it a new market entry? Is it market share? Is it downsizing? Is this, like, make it easy for yourself. Showing those alternatives, what you actually considered and didn't go into detail with, how much detail is actually required in the finance components. I know this was our first stab at it, and what better person to present to than Van Zyl, absolute guru. And yeah, how you just put that presentation together, how you think about your team and your flow and your graphs and everything to it. So absolutely invaluable. Thank you so much. Are there any comments or questions from anyone else on the call? Nada.
I think everybody's really overwhelmed.
And ready to have a Saturday.
But you guys really did such an amazing job. Thank you so much for making yourselves vulnerable in front of an external judge and presenting. I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about VZ. And you guys all did really great. It was a really great turnout. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great Saturday. And yeah, we'll be in contact soon.
Bye, everyone.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.